Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Luffy had strongest Haki, part 1. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I do not own this fanfic, and also make sure to check out the author of this fanfic, Bluewr, and support him for writing this awesome fanfic. Link is in the description. Let's begin this story. In a small village somewhere in the East Blue, a small boy wearing a white shirt, shabby shorts, and a pair of slippers, was holding a knife with his left hand. He was on the prow of a pirate ship, but instead of being annoyed or angry, the crew seemed like they were having fun with the situation. Now you all are going to take me serious. What are you going to do now, Luffy? The captain, a man with red hair using a straw hat, brown pants with marks that go until the knees, a white shirt with golden buttons, but that is just buttoned until his chest, a black cape, and a sword in his waist. The thing that got more attention, besides the color of his hair, was 3 scars in his left eye, that looked like they were made by some animal claw. A super stunt. Or you are gonna try to tame another animal. You should open a zoo. Someone in the crew said. Everyone started laughing until the boy sticks the knife under his left eye, making him bleed while also screaming in pain. Even with the pain and some tears, I didn't take the knife, which was already tainted by blood, as well as a part of a prow. It was necessary intervention from the pirates to stop him. Some time passed after the small incident. In a bar of the village, it could be heard the sound of commemoration. A cheer to Luffy's courage and idiocy. The men cheered with their cups of beer, some were eating meat, and others were trying to steal food or drink from their companions, always ending with everyone drinking. Are you stupid? Shanks screamed, irritated with how careless the boy was, while also drinking a cup of beer. Shut up. I proved my courage, now take me on a trip with you guys. As he already did a lot of times before, Luffy was demanding that the red-haired took him together on the boat. Are you kidding? A brat like you. What are you gonna do? Piss your pants. Can you even swim? You are just gonna be a dead height. He was wuttering after laughing so much. Luffy's eyebrows twisted with his rage. Shut up. I am a lot strong. I train every day, and one day my punch will be as strong as a pistol. Yeah, sure. He talked with obvious disinterest, annoying, even more, the black-haired kid. Some members of the crew were trying to cheer Luffy up by saying how the pirate life was fun. The sea, the treasures, the woman, the freedom. One or another tried to convince their captain to let the kid go with them, at least once, which raised his hopes, until they fell again when Shanks put a condition no one was willing to accept. Enraged, the boy goes to another part of the bar while grumbling. Here Luffy, the captain doesn't do it with no reason. Said a man with a ponytail, a green t-shirt, a range on his waist, and black pants. He had some scars on his arms, and had just lightened up a cigarette. One day you will understand that being a pirate is not so easy, especially being the captain. You have to take care of all your crew, make sure they don't die, fight for them, and another 1,000 things to do along the way. Being a pirate is not a game. Of course, I am not saying this to upset you, nor is the captain trying to make fun of you. He pulled the smoke from the cigarette, and expired it. I have my doubts, said pointing to the red-haired making faces at him. Ben just laughs, and goes back to drinking. It's good that everyone is having fun, said the bar owner, a woman with green hair. She used a long shirt, a skirt covering all her legs, and scarves on her head. She was behind the counter, and was carrying the last barrel of beer they had, which didn't last more than a few minutes thanks to the crew. So Luffy, wanna eat something? Meat. She smiles seeing the obvious answer from the boy, and that he already had the cutlery in his hands. Shanks, how much longer are you guys staying? The boy looks at the scarred man with his big eyes questioning. Shanks puts his hands in his bear, which still needs to be done, thinking. I think we will do 2 or 3 trips before going. And we are not taking you in any of them. He smiled, making fun of the kid. Makino puts Luffy's food on the counter, and the kid, that didn't last long. Still wanting more, he looked around, and saw a chest. Opening it, there was a weird fruit there. At the same time, the door's bar is kicked with violence, stopping all the noise, and playing inside. Look, idiots, I mean, pirates. Basically the same thing. A man with a red coat, white shirt, black pants, a collar of gold hitting on his chest, and a sword on his waist, goes inside with what looked like his underlings. He was a famous mountain bandit, Higume, famous in the areas around for his many crimes. No need to worry cutie, I just want 10 barrels of beer for me, and my men, and then we go away. Makino takes a step behind, scared. Sorry, but we don't have any more beer. The mountain bandit signs, and looks around annoyed. And what is this that they are drinking? It was our last barrel, she said with a forced smile. Don't worry about this, Makino. He takes his bottle of beer, and offers it to Higume. The man smiles, takes the bottle, turns upside down, and punches the red-haired man with it, breaking the glass, and making all the beer full. Here well, I am a big guy here with a bounty of 8.00.000, and you are just a bunch of fuckers pirates. We are natural enemies, so just thinking about drinking the same thing as you makes me sick. What a messin'. He lowers to get the pieces of glass, and Higume looks at it with disdain. He proceeds to destroy more bottles, and throw more food onto the floor. If you like cleaning so much, this will probably keep you busy. Let's go. In contrast to when they got, everything was quiet now that they were gone. For only 1 second. They got you, Captain. Your face was priceless. Even Shanks was laughing. Yeah. Luffy was hearing everything, and rage was growing inside of him. He pressed his fists and furrowed his forehead. No one realized yet, but there was a small amount of dark smoke getting out of his hands. Are you guys kidding? This was a shame. Why didn't you do anything? Aren't you pirates? The captain looks at him, still smiling. Come on, Luffy. This is not a reason to get annoyed at anyone. Why would we start a fight for worthless killing? So you that much of a coward? The dark-haired boy turns around extremely annoyed. More smoke was getting out of him, and this time not only on his hands, but in his whole arm, and back too. Finally noticing this, Shanks widened his eyes. Luffy, wait. He stretches his arms, trying to reach the boy. Don't speak with me. I am going after real pirates. He dodges Shanks' hand, and something that looks like dark fire, but with no heat, gets put off his hand, destroying the closest table. Luffy's chin looked like it would fall onto the floor, just like the crew, including the captain. At this moment a fat man looks inside the chest that was on the counter. But it was open, and empty. Captain. It's gone. Lucky gets a near drawing of the fruit, and shows it to Luffy. In the drawing, there was a purple fruit that looked like a bunch of grapes in the shape of tears with swirls inside, and with some green leaves at the top. Luffy, did you eat this fruit? The kid does a small with his mouth. I thought it was a dessert. And it was pretty bad. Shanks put his hands on his head, in despair. Shit, Luffy. That was a devil fruit. And one that we had a lot of trouble to get. It was hard to say if he was enraged or worried, but the calm he showed before was gone. Devil fruit. The kid does a doubtful look, leaning his head to the right. A devil fruit. And not anyone, it was just a yummy no me. First, that you will never swim again. Second. However, the kid was so surprised that he didn't let the captain finish it. Making a face of despair, more dark smoke got out of him. What? A small explosion happens. Some days later, Luffy was walking to Makino's bar, greeting the people from the village while passing through them. The mayor screamed at him, saying that he would not let the kid become a pirate, acting similarly to the dark-haired kid's grandfather. And just like how he did with his grandpa, Luffy just ignored. He was in a good mood. Even if still not used to them, his powers looked powerful. There was still the need to learn how to control them well, otherwise, his emotions got out of control. The same thing that happened before would repeat. And he still had no idea what the fruit's properties were. The boy goes into the bar, and waves to the owner. Yo Makino. He was smiling. Hi Luffy, do you want something? I think that's just juice. While he was drinking, the bar was filled with silence. Do you miss them? He wraps his mouth. No, I judged them bad. They're just cowards. I don't know, I don't think a coward would laugh in a situation like that. The two hear the sound of the door opening again. The mountain bandits were back. This place doesn't stink so much without pirates. He and his men take every seat of the bar, acting as the owners of the place. Makino put Luffy behind the counter. So cutie. Where is the beer? The green-haired forces a smile, fills several cups, and goes delivering them. The bandits whistle while she passes, even trying to touch her. Luffy shows extreme hate on his face, and once more that dark smoke gets out of him. The boy even thinks of acting, but Makino makes a signal for him to stop. She passes a cup to Higume, and goes behind the counter. He looks at her with a despicable smile. Those guys from the other day were a fucking joke. I was this close to killing that asshole. Fucking coward. He said, putting his indicator above his thumb with a small distance between them. And that was the last straw for Luffy. He jumps to the counter. Makino even tries to stop him, but can't. A shitty bandit like you has no right to say that Shanks is a coward. Every mountain bandit looks annoyed to the brat. This time there was no smoke getting out of him. What did why? You heard me. In one movement he gets out of the chair, and punches the kid that falls to the floor, hitting the head first. Luffy. She screams worried, however, the kid doesn't even seem to notice. Screaming, he holds his stomach with one hand, and a callus in his head with the other. Never had he felt so much pain before, which was weird since he already passed through much worse stuff. This kid is just talking, he is even worse than that fucker. All of them start laughing. Makino is in despair, but has no idea what to do. A shitty bandit has no right to insult Shanks. Below Luffy's body, while he was still contorting himself, his shadow looked like it was changing, as if it was becoming some type of dark flame. Smoke also started to get out of the boy's body. The laugh stopped at that surreal scene. A strong wind started inside the bar, but it seemed to be going into that dark mass. The cup that was on the counter fell into that shadow, and looked like it was completely swallowed. This situation just took a mere seconds before Luffy ran out of energy, and went back to normal. Everyone was in shock, even Makino, who had already seen Luffy eating the fruit, though she had no idea of the extension of his powers. The kid was still on the floor, sweating cold, and breathing heavy. What the fuck was that? The mountain bandit leaders even had a small amount of fear in his eye. This until one of his subordinates said something that turned the fear into greed. Hey, boss, how much do you think someone would pay for the brat with a power like this? A smile forms on the leader's face. There's just one way to discover. Hearing this, Makino goes into even more despair. Wait, shut up, woman. Higume gives a slap in her face, gets Luffy, and goes out of the bar running with his underlings. Makino. He tries to raise his hand, but not even this the kid has the strength to do. The bar owner gets up and starts running, but the bandit silhouette is already out of the village, and even if they were still here, there would be no one to help. If at least Garp-san was here. From far away, all the village watched the criminal getting away. Some even wanted to help the dark-haired boy, but courage lacked for all of them. "Damn, what kind of shit you put yourself into this time," said the mayor. Everyone was distressed, praying for some kind of miracle that would save the boy. Their prayers were heard. I was asking myself why no one showed up to greet us. Why are the bandits with Luffy? Nobody noticed the pirate's presence, and out of nowhere, he was with them. Shanks, they are gonna try to sell Luffy. The man sees the anguish in Makino's face, and more or less understands the situation. Of course I am not letting them do this to my friend. Men, let's go. Yes, Captain. Just like with Shanks, the crew's presence was just noticed when they spoke. And, as fast as they showed up, they disappeared, or at least it was, as it looked like to the people of the village. The bandits were following the coast, in the direction of their nearest base. Luffy was debating in vain since he no longer had the energy to do something. So, a strong pressure is imposed on the bandits' bodies, and they all stay petrified. I don't care if you make fun of me, or laugh at me. Now, if you are gonna try to hurt one of my friends, that's something I can only forgive with death. Shanks was with a serious look on his face while saying those words. Friend, the kid repeated weakly. The red-haired with the straw hat walked among the mountain bandits. Shit. Once more on that day, Kaguma was taken by fear. The pressure on them disappears. They all take their weapons, and aim for Shanks, which is still unshakable. Before any of them had the chance to do anything, the pirates attacked. In less than half a minute, all the mountain bandits, except Kaguma, were on the floor, dead. The leader was in shock, without understanding a single thing that happened. Even Luffy was surprised. He remembered what Shanks said about the meaningless deaths, and he finally realized he was not talking about the crew. Let the boy go. The leader, now ex-leader, of the bandits, was completely taken by the fear. He takes some steps back, and before anyone manages to do something, he takes a thing from his pocket and throws it into the floor. A smoke bomb. The pirates cough a little, and when the smoke is gone both Kaguma and Luffy disappear. Shit. Shanks said, even more pissed off. Close from there, the mountain bandit had stolen a small boat from a nearby fisherman, going as far as he could from the coast. He was hyperventilating in complete despair. Shit. 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 This is all your fault. He kicks Luffy in the stomach with all the strength he had, making the kid vomit, cry, and scream in even more pain. Scream as much as you want, you fucker. He now had the eyes of a lunatic. Standing up in the middle of the boat, with waves constantly hitting into it, and since it was just a small boat for fishing, staying up was not the easiest thing to do. Kaguma catches the gun in his waist, and points it to Luffy. Imagine what will. Before he could finish the phrase, a marine monster, attracted by the screams from the small devil fruit user, swallowed his upper body. For the monster, the meat and bones were as fragile as paper. A lot of blood soiled the boat, the ocean, and Luffy, that didn't give attention to that. He was way more scared with what would happen to him. The creature finishes the lower part of the old bandit, destroying the boat in the process. The kid falls into the water, and the small strength he still had is gone. With his eyes almost closing, he just sees the monster's silhouette coming for him. I don't want to die. Some force pulls him up from the water, and covers him in a hug. The boy fills his lungs with air again, and looks up to the red-haired with a straw hat. The monster opens its mouth to attack again, but Shanks simply looks at him. The creature stops, and goes away with a lot of fear. Shanks, the things I said to you, I'm sorry, the small one said, crying. The captain puts his hand on his head, messing a little more with his hair. A big smile could be seen on his face. Everything is okay, Luffy. It was the first time Luffy felt so weak, and he also finally understood how dangerous the sea could be. This time you are going for good, right? The boy, he now also had a scar under his left eye, asked while also smiling. Yeah, and don't even try to ask cause we are not taking you. The captain says with a kidding tone. I wasn't even going to ask. He puts his tongue out, answering. When I go to the ocean, it will be my own crew. Hearing this, not just the captain, but all the pirates on the ship gave a smile, seeing that the boy had matured a little. I asked myself what kind of crew weakling like you can get. A crew even better than yours. I will be stronger than you. No, I will be stronger. I will be the pirate king. Everyone's smile grows even bigger. They knew the boy would not let them down. Shanks lowers to look Luffy face to face, his expression a little more serious. I think that for now, this is goodbye. Luffy, I already explained to you the properties of your devil fruit. Take a lot of care to make sure that besides your grandfather and grandmother, no one else discovers it. The boy waved with his head. For sure. This is the perfect fruit for the future strongest of the world. For sure. And to finalize, he takes his straw hat and puts on Luffy's head, taking the boy by surprise. You know, this hat is really important to me. Until the day you become a great pirate and we see each other again, take care of him for me. Okay. Luffy wanted to say something, but the tears wouldn't let go. So, again, he just waves with his head. This was not yet the beginning of Luffy's journey, but without a doubt, it was what started it. The journey itself would begin 10 years later. Everyone in the village was at the harbor, looking at a boy. He was not gigantic, but had well-developed and trained muscles, used an old straw hat, an open red shirt, shorts, and slippers, as well as some stolen berries in his pockets. In his back, instead of a gun or a sword, he had a pipe. He was finishing putting the supplies in the fishing boat. Next to his boat, there was another one, with a big tiger sleeping, and occupying almost all the space. Luffy finished tying one boat to the other, and turned around to say his goodbyes. Bye guys. The next time you hear about me will be through my reward. Except for the mayor, everyone laughed. Goodbye Luffy, have a good journey, said Makino with a big smile, seeing the boy finally go to accomplish his dream. Don't forget to bring some treasure when you come back, someone from the village said. Count on me. TSC, you are going to destroy our reputation. The Straw Hat Boy unties the boat from the harbor, and, pulling the other boat with his tiger, goes in the direction of his adventures. He had already taken a considerable distance when a marine monster, the same from many years back, appeared in front of him. Yo, I always wanted to meet you again. The monster attacks. Luffy simply laughs. His right hand became covered with what looks like dark flames, but in reality, were pure darkness, and he does a punch that soon turns into a column of darkness, hitting, and killing the creature in the spot, making even a big hole in its dead body. You see, food. The pirate takes the body closer, and even his tiger wakes up to eat. This was the beginning of the journey of Monkey D. Luffy, the man that would become the Pirate King. On the coast of an island, there was a pink pirate ship moored. The captain was looking at how clean it was, from head to toe, and if somebody left the minimum amount of dust, well, with luck they would just be beaten. Behind her, there was a small boy with pink hair, curved posture, patched glasses, as well beaten clothes. He also had some injuries, showing the abuses he suffered from that crew. Tell me, Kobe, do you see any dust here? Asked Alvida, the captain, and the boy's worst nightmare. No, Miss Alvida, the most beautiful on all the seas, I see nothing. Alvida smiled, satisfied with the answer. She too didn't see any dust, which was great since the dirt she did during punishments was even bigger than some dust. The crew smiled too, to please her, but none of them were happy to see that smile, since her face muscles weren't favored when she did that expression or any other. What are you waiting for, idiots? Get on replacing the supplies. You too, Kobe, she said, using her metal club to put everyone to work, and kicking Kobe to the ocean. Cough, what a life. He grated some parts of his body when he fell into the sand. The salt water was making it burn a little, but at this point, he was used to the worst. The pink-haired suddenly sensed something touching him, and looking to his side he saw two floating barrels, one even looking swollen. It must be Sake. If I give it to the captain, maybe she will leave me alone for some time. He thought to himself, a smile forming on his face, as he tried to take the two barrels. Showing to be too heavy for him, the boy rolls them to the storage of supplies next to the ship. But when he is about to enter, two of his colleagues appear. Hold on, Kobe. Is this a drink? The pirate asks, rubbing his hands with expectation. Well, I think it is, but it is for the captain, right? He gives a fearful smile, and puts himself behind the barrels. Kobe. If the captain doesn't know, and if you don't open your fucking mouth, no one gets hurt. Another pirate shows up, putting his arm around the small neck. If it was not for the knife pointing centimeters from him, they would seem like friends. Well yeah, if you guys say so. He was disappointed that his chance to flatter the captain a little for some peace was gone, but it didn't matter anymore, his life was more important. So let's get some cup sand. What a good nap. The front barrel, the one that was not swollen, was broken into pieces. All of the three members of the crew widened their eyes when a boy that looked barely older than Kobe, but higher, and with developed muscles, appeared. An attack. The same one that was threatening the pink-haired with the knife said. He pushed the sword in his back, and tried to cut Luffy, that just smiled, dodged the blade, held the pulse of the hand that was using the sword, and with his other hand punched the guy, got him by the hair, lowered his face, and went up with his knees, making the two collide with violence. The pirate's nose was broken, and he was already unconscious. The other one tried to get his pistol to shoot, but Luffy jumped, took the pipe out of his back, and used it to punch with force the pirate's neck, making a big snap, and throwing him into the floor. Alvida's underling completely lost his air, and before he could get it back, the straw hat changed the position he was holding the pipe, and stuck it in the middle of the enemy's neck, making him spit blood, and kill on sight. Weird guys, attacking out of nowhere. You see, where are you? The second barrel, the swollen one, but this time the one that gets out is a tiger, that stretches himself, licks his pawn, and looks at his owner. He says, as a way to show his presence to Luffy, and starts patting the tiger's head. Good boy. Then, the two looked at a small boy with pink hair that had pissed himself, and was almost crying. Kobe was in shock. Those two pirates were way too strong for him, and even so, they were nothing in front of this straw hat kid. Luffy, seeing that the small one had no intention of fighting, takes a look around, and sees the pirate ship, understanding a little better the situation. Once more he looks to Kobe. Are you from the same crew? Don't you want to avenge your friends? He asks, a little confused. Kobe answers, shaking his hand from one side to the other. No, they're not my friends, no way. Both the owner and the animal tilts their head to the side in doubt. Why would the kid be with people he didn't even seem to like? First, let's get out of here before someone sees us. But, why did you get inside barrels? We were running away from a swirl in the ocean. The casual way he said that put even more fear into the pink-haired boy. They go deeper into the forest. There the kid explains his story to Luffy. 2 years ago he wanted to go fishing, but instead of a fishing boat, he ended up on Alvida's pirate ship. To survive he became the jack of all trades, but had a life of abuse and uncertainty about the next day. You are pathetic. Both the dark-haired and the tiger looked like they were having fun with his story. I know I am too weak, but I still have a dream. Oh yeah. My dream is to become the pirate king. What is yours? Kobe gave a jump to behind, hearing him say this so casually. King of the pirates. You want to be a pirate? Luffy snorted. Not a pirate. The king. Kobe started sweating cold. The presence of that boy, that pirate, looked too outstanding for him. There was something about Luffy's aura that he could not explain. Well, anyone that tamed a tiger and claimed so casually about being the pirate king wouldn't be normal. Slowly, seeing the straw hat boy, the pink-haired started feeling confidence he never felt before. I want to be from the Marines. I want to finish pirates. It looked like he had made a lot of effort to say this simple line. He was sweating and snorting, but Luffy smiled at him. He still thinks that the kid was pathetic, but he had ambition, and this was something he could respect. And this includes me, Kobe. The pitched and annoying voice of Alvida sent chills to the boy's spine. He slowly looked behind, and saw the captain there with a smile, as well as some of her underlings. Captain, any indication of courage he had shown before was completely gone. So you want to become a marine? After everything, you intend to betray us. And this one behind you, who is it? A marine? Or the bounty hunter? Luffy faces Alvida a little. What a whale. Everyone locked up. Alvida distorts her face so much with hate that would be enough to give little kid nightmares. Oh yeah, you fucking piece of shit that has no taste for women. I am gonna kill you. No, you're not, he says, shaking his right hand. I am Mickey D. Luffy, and I will become the Pirate King. Alvida looks a little more at him, still angry, and then turns her head to Kobe, scaring the kid. He is just a crazy one. And you Kobe, you serve me well. I am still punishing you, but if you take back what you said I am willing to not kill you. The small one swallows day, and gives some steps back. For a second I thought I could free myself from this, that I could fulfill my dream. What was I thinking? He thinks to himself in despair. Kobe, what is your dream? Hearing this question once more, everything goes silent to the pink-haired boy. He fills his lungs with air, and screams. I want to be a marine. He sees the face of his ex-captain distorting with hate, making her even worse. He also sees the club full of spikes going to his face, and closes his eyes instinctually. At least I was faithful to my dream at the last second. However, the impact he was waiting for never came. Wondering why the pain was taking so long to be felt, he opened his eyes again, and got shocked. Luffy, using that steel pipe, was holding Alvida's club. She, and her whole crew were not believing their eyes. You see, feel free to go. Following his owner's order, the tiger starts attacking the pirates, who barely had time to react. Some even tried to pull their weapons, but those were the first ones you see attacked, biting, taking out, or even devouring parts of their bodies. At the same time, Alvida draws back the club, and tries to attack Luffy again. As an answer, he guards the pipe in his back, and his whole left hand goes covered by what looks like a dark flame. Alvida and Kobe widens their eyes in fear. It's the first time they see a devil fruit user. He shakes his hand to the side, and the dark flame spread, taking the club in the middle of the arc it was doing, and, as it gets out of the said flame, Alvida wide, even more, her eyes seeing what happened with her weapon. Except for the hilt in her hands, everything else was gone. She looks scared at Luffy. Damn you. You are the pirate hunter, aren't you? I am Mickey D. Luffy, the future pirate king. And so, the straw hat points to her with his left hand, still covered by darkness. Liberation. The superior part of the club that had gone got out of his hand at full speed, hitting the pirate. The spikes pierce her, and the impact is so strong that she goes flying, breaking 2 trees in the process. Beyond holes in her cloth and body, she had some broken bones, even ribs. She tossed some blood, and started having some trouble breathing. She throws the rest of the club on the floor, and tries to get up, but realizes one knee was broken. Captain. Seeing that their leader had been defeated, and that the enemy didn't even sweat, and was still standing, and smiling, some got desperate, and started running away, while others advanced against the dark-haired boy, and the tiger. Yusi went in position to attack. Yusi, go behind me, I am gonna finish this. The tiger, seeing his master waving, and calling for him, jumped exactly behind the rookie pirate. At the same moment, he started licking his pawn, as if he had lost all interest in what was happening. You fucker. Being next to Luffy, this pirate tried to pull a sword to cut him, and everything the dark hair did was smile. Below him, his shadow looked like it was about to get out of the floor looking like dark smoke. This smoke extended itself, just not getting below Kobe, Yusi, and Alvida, which was a little further away. And while they screamed to attack Luffy, they were all pulled by this darkness on the floor. It even looked like the island, no, the world, was being pushed by that black hole. The wind, the trees, the branches, the birds, everything was being pushed by the darkness. Yusi was stable, but Kobe was having problems just keeping standing. At the moment everyone was absorbed, the darkness went back, and once again it was just Luffy with a normal shadow. What you did with my crew? She asks, still leaning against a broken tree. The shadow once again turns into a mass of darkness, and goes below Alvida. And unlike before, the darkness was just a line that went from Luffy to the enemy captain. With several years of training, he improved his powers a lot. Alvida looked below, and couldn't even react before she had the same destiny as her underlings. After she was absorbed, Luffy stopped the attack. The terrain was different now. Trees looked like they were inclined to the same direction. As the black hole had moved, some marks were obvious on the floor, and it looked like something went missing. They died? Asked the pink-haired, frightened. I don't know. The Yami no Mi user stands his hand above the head, pointing to the other side of the island. Dark smoke starts to get out of the palm of his hand. Liberation. Endless bodies started flying with an impressive speed, getting out of that smoke that formed in the pirate's hand palm. The people that got out had blood running from their orifices, like ears and eyes, as well as uncountable internal damage. Some were dead at the moment they got out, others died with the fall, while few would survive with a lot of scars, physical and mental. The strength that sent them out was so great that they went to the other side of the island, sometimes in the land, sometimes in the ocean. The last one out was Alvida, and seeing the one that made him suffer, flying, and completely beaten, makes Kobe so relieved in a way that he doesn't feel for years. Luffy puts his hands above his eyes to block the sun, and looks in the direction they were sent. This must have hurt. What's in the ship? He asks, turning in the direction of the base, of the pirates that are no more. A little gold, some berries, and some supplies. Luffy gives a big smile hearing this. You see, let's go, everything is ours now. Any complaints? Kobe makes a no with his head a lot of times. There was not a lot of gold, just some jewels, and necklaces that were from Alvida. The Straw Hat got everything he could put on his boat, even putting some on his pockets, and even some necklaces and bracelets on himself to make it easier to carry them. That crew barely had 3,000 berries, but it would be enough. And the supplies were easily almost finished, with the food being eaten by the boy and his tiger, as well the drinks. Luffy even made the pink-haired drink a little. To the dark-haired boy that was nothing much, but for Kobe it was basically a party. And what are you gonna do now, Luffy-san? He asks, between some drinks of beer. The pirate finishes a cup of beer, takes a big bite out of a piece of meat, and ponders a little. For now let's go to the closest marine base. Maybe they have a prisoner to be my companion. He says with an optimistic smile, while Kobe once more gets scared. Are you sure it's a good idea to go to a marine base? Huh? But don't you want to be a marine? Hearing this question was like lightning hitting him, as his eyes started to tear. I understand even now Luffy-san is trying to help me in my dream. Thank you. He says, almost starting to cry. Okay, let's go easy on the drinks because I need someone to navigate. When can we go? Kobe stands up promptly. Right now. I have had a boat ready for a long time, and we can take some more for the supplies, and for Yusi. That's what I like to hear. So let's go. They take in total 3 small boats, one for them, one for Yusi, and one for the supplies, and spoils from Alvida's ship. Setting sail, they go straight to the next island. It was already dark, and the two were still wandering the ocean on the east blue. So you're a dark human. And those things were black holes. The pink-haired asked to make sure, after hearing Luffy's explanation. Basically, while the future marine opens his mouth in amazement, the pirate devours what little meat they have left, and drinks from a bottle already half of its original content. The tiger in the next boat lazily nibbled a bone. This sake is kin to good. What's up, Kobe? You're really going to take me to that Zorogai base, right? The boy nods his head several times. Of course. We should get there tomorrow. Even though they're at sea, he looks to one side, as if checking that no one is listening. According to rumors, the pirate hunter was captured and imprisoned there. Pirate hunter, will he join my crew? His smile almost makes it look like he's not talking about someone feared by both civilians and pirates. Luffy-san, be careful. They say he is very cruel and dangerous. The one in the straw hat lies down and turns to the side. If I don't like him, I won't let him in my crew. It's simple. Kobe felt a headache talking to the other, and it's sure as hell the drinks weren't the ones to blame. It was around 10 AM when they got off the boats. Wow. We've arrived. By docking the small boats on the island's coast, they could observe the navy base from a distance. I think the first thing to do is have breakfast. Luffy stretches from side to side and nods in agreement. On the boats they had already run out of supplies, and what was valuable was with the boy in the straw hat. He had given the one of Murray in a few hundred berries, but Kobe himself wouldn't take more than that. You see? Let's have food. The tiger, hearing the owner's call, jumps off the boat, and the three go to a restaurant. In the city, people are clearly scared by the tiger, but somehow they seem strangely used to a wild animal walking around, since they don't look so shocked, just avoiding them. They enter the first restaurant they see, and again despite being scared no one tries to stop the tiger from going inside. Yet almost everyone retreats away from their chosen table. Almost everyone, but a woman with more vibrant hair than Kobe's, wore a white tank top showing her stomach, and a cleavage showing part of her breasts. At her waist she had red and black striped shorts, and an orange belt with black stripes, and yellow buckles with thin suspenders. Her feet, which were on the table, were covered by high black boots, and also socks with sun prints that reached halfway up her thigh. Even though it was barely 10 in the morning, there were several plates piled on her table, and she was still devouring a slice of pizza. She eyed Kobe and Luffy suspiciously. The first one was alert, even scared, but the dark-haired boy didn't care. They ordered. The owner was afraid to approach, but when she saw how Yusi just lay down and started licking his own paw, she got a little more relaxed. Within minutes they were eating bread and drinking some juice. "Do you know what to do now?" he asks in the middle of a bite. "It wasn't me, but it was pretty good. I have to enlist at the base. For what I've seen on the streets, this base belongs to Captain Morgan." Hearing that name, everyone in the restaurant, except the girl who was devouring the pizza, becomes startled. The two find this strange, but continue talking. "I wonder if this Or guy is really here." People are once again frightened, some even leave the restaurant. The pink-haired one looks interested in Luffy, as he devours even more food, looking like an endless pit. "I think this is yes." "Yeah, apparently," he says weakly, drinking a cup of juice, but still, why would people be scared at the mention of a Navy captain? After they finish eating and paying the bill, the three leave the restaurant, much to the owner's relief. As soon as they walk out the door where she was devouring the pizzas, she also pays the bill and goes after them. "Hey there." The three stop and look back. Kobe gets scared and takes some steps back while Luffy and Lucy just stare at the pinky. "Why were you staring at us at the restaurant?" She laughs at the question. It's not every day that you see someone walking around with a tiger. And much less casually talking about the pirate hunter. "Are you by any chance his partner?" Luffy crosses his arms and turns his head. "He'll be my crewmate. I am Monkey D. Luffy, the future king of the pirates." People run as far away as they can when they hear this. Even Kobe was more scared than before. "This is impossible. I'll make it to the end of the Grand Line and become the first pirate queen." Luffy frowns and approaches her. "In your dreams, I'm going to be the king." "No, I will." She speaks, approaching him. "I'll be." He gets even closer. Now their foreheads were touching, and they were pushing against each other in a kind of competition of strength. "And who the fuck you even are?" She backs up, causing Luffy to almost fall, but he quickly recovers. "Jory Bonnie. It's better to make sure to remember this name since I'm the future queen." The pink-haired one folds her arms beneath her breasts and speaks as if she's already victorious. "No, I'm going to be king." A vein appears on her forehead. She sighs and decides to let it pass by for the time being. "Whatever. You want to meet the pirate hunter, don't you? Come with me, and I'll show you where he is." Kobe gets even more scared while in contrast Luffy gets interested. "Oh, thanks." Bonnie leads the way. They make a small detour from where they were going, but still stop by the base. They stand in front of a wall, and on the other side, the pink-haired pirate says is the most famous and feared pirate hunter. The Furano Zoro is as strong as they say. The captain must be even stronger to have captured him. Hearing this, she twists her mouth at the comment. "Bonnie, shut up. You do not know anything. This fucking Marines are a joke, they got lucky." She looked quite frustrated as she said this. Luffy stared at her with curiosity. What really happened? Bonnie took a deep breath and began to tell. "I got here the same day he did. Apparently, Captain Morgan is in charge here, and his little shitty son uses this as an excuse to do anything, including hanging around with dangerous animals." She takes a look at Yusi before continuing. "One of those animals, a wolf, was going to attack a little girl. Homepo, the captain's son, was just laughing while the girl was going to be devoured. Then Urano intervened and killed the animal on the spot. This almost started a fight with the entire base, but they gave him the condition that if he stayed tied up there and survived for a month, they would let it pass without involving the city. He accepted right away." Luffy nodded, showing that he understood, while Kobe was already shaking with rage. "This is horrible. The Navy shouldn't be like this." Bonnie looks at him with a lot of contempt. "This is nothing. Abuse of power, corruption, they're all out there. This island is not even in such a bad situation, at least I've seen worse." She said with no particular care. It was just facts, things she saw on a daily basis. "But this is so wrong." He spoke weakly, his fists trembling, and tears forming in his eyes. In contrast, Bonnie had to make an effort to not laugh. "Really? Did you find this out yourself? So why don't you ask for help from the Navy or the government?" "Oh, wait." The little one with the glasses gets even more angry and frustrated, not knowing if he can still trust the justice he believes so strongly. Was that what he really wanted to be a part of? Was this the organization of justice and goodness that he had so much faith in? "Kobe, you want to be a Marine, don't you? So are you going to change these things?" It was just a short question. Luffy wasn't even looking at his friend, but it still opened the boy's eyes in a way he would be forever grateful. If the organization he believed in so strongly was corrupted, it was even more of a reason to join, so he would make a difference. Thank you, Luffy-san. The Straw Hat just smiled at him. I don't know what you're talking about. He's right. No matter how long it takes or how strong I have to stay, I'm going to change it. Thinking to himself, he was even more determined now. This was a small, but important turning point in Kobe's journey, and ironically he had a pirate to thank for it. Time to see if this ore guy is gonna be a nice addition for my crew. With a hopeful smile on his face, he takes a little jump, leans against the wall, and looks across. What Luffy sees is a man tied to a wooden cross by his arms and waist. He was tall, his face was hidden by a shadow, as his head was down. He wore a bandana that covered all of his hair, a white shirt that was all sweaty and dirty. At the waist a green hair maki, and black pants, and boots. Even though it was evident that he had been there for days, and was not at his peak, his presence was still imposing. If you're thinking about letting him go, forget it. I already tried, and he just sent me away. How long has he been here? He asks, without taking his eyes from the pirate hunter. About 9 days. He whistles, and considers something. Then he thinks of something, and turns his head to face her. You said you arrived on the same day as him. Did you happen to come with him? No? So why are you still here? She sighs. I don't know, I think I want to see how this ends. I also wanted to hit the captain of that base, but I don't think going against all of them alone, while they have a prisoner, is the best of the ideas. The dark-haired boy considers a little, before answering. I'll help you if you want. The two look at him in disbelief, but Kobe more because he didn't expect that. With what he had seen about Luffy's powers, he knew if he was serious, he could take down the whole base. You aren't serious, are you? She had admitted he looked like he could lay a punch, but going against the whole base. Even with the tiger they would just be shot to death. Why wouldn't I be? Bonnie had seen a lot of shitty people in her life, and could tell easily when someone tried to lie to her. And she was also fully aware that the Straw Hat was not only not lying, he was also completely confident. Before she herself noticed, she was giving a fearless smile. Fine, if you say so. But why do you want to help me? She asks just to make sure about his intentions. You seem like a nice person. I want you on my crew. He says with a big smile, that she answers laughing. You're interesting, Luffy. Maybe I'll let you join my crew. Hearing this, the dark-haired man gets annoyed. No? I'll let you join my crew. A vein pops in the woman's forehead. TSK. No fucking way. You're the one who joined my crew. No? UW. Hey. A loud voice coming from the pirate hunter calls their attention. Can you lovebirds stop this stupid fight? It's already annoying me. Hearing the pirate hunter's rage, Kobe fell on his ass trembling. Luffy and Bonnie on the other hand look just as angry as he is. Who are you calling lovebirds? Holy shit, I don't deserve this. At the same moment, a little girl appears carrying a ladder. She leans it against the wall and climbs on it. Looking from side to side, she makes a silent sign with her finger to the pirates and jumps to the other side. Even Zoro looks at her curiously. The little one comes face to face with the dreaded swordsman and raises her hand showing him a rice bowl. What is this? The little girl gives him an innocent smile. It's because you saved me. He closes his eyes. I don't need this, go away. Hearing this, the smile of the small one disappears. But Zoro opens his eyes and looks directly at her. Go away. Despite looking ready to cry, she refuses to move. Uranoa making children cry. I think this is a great reason for your execution. The blonde guy, with a long-sleeved black shirt, pants of the same color, gold buttons on both, and rings, some even having diamonds on them, and also some gold necklaces, enters the field followed by 2 soldiers. TSK, that's the Helmeppo guy I was talking about. Got it. He speaks without any specific expression. Zoro looks sideways to face the Navy captain's son. What are you talking about? We have a deal. The swordsman didn't really seem to be shaken by what was said. Only after 9 days with nothing, and a few last minutes that he found annoying enough, his patience was gone. Even tied up, tired, and in abstinence for days, the pirate hunter scared the blonde so much that he fell to the ground just because of the look. Realizing the situation in which Helmeppo had placed himself, he got stressed. Little girl, don't waste time with this monster. Why don't you give me this rice ball instead? He speaks, already taking the food that was supposed to be given to the swordsman. This is not for you. She raises her arms and starts hitting him. The blonde in response clicks his tongue and kicks the girl who fell to the ground crying. Hey. The green-haired swordsman screams with hate burning in his eyes. Son of a bitch. Bonnie says, with disgust in her face. Luffy punches the wall, annoyed. He prepares to jump to the other side, only to Helmeppo to make them even more mad. What a horrible thing. Did you use sugar? Shit. He spits out everything he ate, throws what was still in his hand to the ground, and starts kicking. The little one looks at all her effort being treated like that, and cries even more. Oh, what an annoying girl, and still wanted to help a criminal. We should throw her and her family in jail. He says, scratching his ear with an indifferent face. But sir, one of the soldiers tries to oppose, only for Helmeppo to look at him with contempt and anger. Do you really want to disobey me? Hey you little shit, don't dare it. Helmeppo looks at Zoro with less fear now, and much angrier. It was very obvious that it was the first time in his life that nothing had gone his way. Quiet, Urano. You want to know? I would kill you in 3 days, but it seems that there's nothing good about letting you live. For the first time Zoro widened his eyes. But you said, I was Lin. Before finishing his speech, the blonde one was interrupted by a punch in the face, sending him flying to the other side of the field. And the person responsible for the punch could not be other than the pirate with the straw hat. The blonde is lying on the ground crying and writhing. Fuck Luffy. I wanted to do this. It's not my fault you were slow. They and Lucy had already climbed over the wall and were ready to finish off those sailors. Kobe ran, snatched up the child, and pulled her out of that field that would soon become a scene of combat. The 2 soldiers who were with their captain's son were stunned, and before they could act they both got their faces violently kicked by Bonnie. Her tall boots were practically weapons piercing their faces. Thanks, Zoro said, accepting their help. I'm just helping a future crewmate. The dark-haired says with a big smile on his face. Hearing this the swordsman raises an eyebrow. Crewmate. Luffy nods his head confirming what was said. Yes. I am Monkey D. Luffy, future king of the pirates, and I want you on my crew. The swordsman bursts out laughing. Thanks, but I don't want to be a pirate, so I pass. Luffy waves his hand from side to side making a negative sign. No, I've already made up my mind. You're a swordsman, right? Where are your swords? He says in an egoistic manner that Bonnie was already starting to get used to it. Don't decide things for others. TSK, that spoiled little shit got them. They're my treasure. Your treasure. A big smile appears on Luffy's face. So if I retrieve them for you, you'll join my crew, right? Before he heard the answer he ran out, grabbed Helmeppo by the collar, and went straight to base. Zoro stares open-mouthed at the attitude of the one in the straw hat. Your boyfriend is kinda crazy. He's not my boyfriend. But yeah, he's crazy. At the base Luffy kicks the entrance door knocking down some guards, and goes fast through the corridors. He grabs Helmeppo's head, and smacks it hard against the wall. His nose breaks, and his face is all swollen. The mucus, tears, and blood make his face even worse than it already was. Where are Zoro's swords? In my room, he answers, crying. Show where it is. In one hand he held the captain's son, in the other the steel pipe he used to beat the marines. If someone tried to shoot him Luffy would use his hostage as a human shield. It didn't take long for him to get to the room. At the same time some soldiers tried to kill Bonnie, Zoro, and Yusi. Strangely, crying children and old men were lying on the ground wearing sailor clothes. What the fuck is this? More and more, that day was surprising the swordsman. I am a devil fruit user. She speaks, aiming at a soldier coming towards her. She pulls the trigger, and the bullet hits her head. They don't even have time to celebrate before more soldiers show up. Zoro notices that she is panting. Yusi was on top of some dead soldiers licking the blood off their paws. If things go on like this, probably none of us will survive. But I can't die. He clenches his fists determinedly. If he died he would break his promise, and that was not something he was willing to accept. The day before his best friend died, the only person he could never beat, they had promised that one of them would be the strongest swordsman in the world. But the next day she died, so now whatever it takes, I won't die. I'll become the strongest swordsman in the world. If I had a blade or if it were 9 days ago I could know, there's no excuse for my weakness. Don't come closer. That woman seems to have power. Shoot from a distance. One of the soldiers screamed, making sure everyone was as far away from Bonnie as they could be. At that same instant Bonnie sees that the gun she took has run out of bullets. She gives an intimidated smile, and throws the gun to the ground. The problem was not her, she was pretty confident in taking out all of them. The problem was a green-haired guy that couldn't move, and was probably going to be shot if she tried anything. Even the tiger takes a step back, realizing the seriousness of the situation. Yeah, now we are fucked. Back to Luffy. On a wall in the bedroom under a window he sees 3 swords. He once again puts the pipe behind his back, and takes the 3 swords. At least one of those for sure are his. He looks out the window, and sees that his 2 new companions, and his pet are surrounded, and about to be shot. Shit. The straw hat opens a window, and jumps out. What are you doing? He just forgot to release Helmeppo. Luffy doesn't even pay attention to his scream, and he also faints in the middle of the fall. The soldiers hear it, and look up only to see a column of black smoke rising from the base, and heading straight for the pirates, hitting the ground. Dust rises blocking their view. I didn't know which one was yours, so I took these 3. Luffy shows Zoro's swords. Helmeppo was thrown to the ground a little way away from them. All 3 are mine. I'm a style user. Cool. If you want me to release you, and give you your swords, you know, right? He asks with a grin from ear to ear. Bonnie demonstrates the same expression. Even Urano smiles. Alright. I'd rather become a pirate than die here. Luffy's smile widens even more. He takes the swords out of their scabbards, and throws them. Zoro takes one in his mouth, and the other 2 in his hand, and with a quick movement all the ropes are cut. But let me be very clear. I'm going to be the best swordsman in the world, so if you get in the way of my dream, I'll kill you. The swordsman was talking seriously, looking into the eyes of the straw hat, but his expression didn't even change. Best swordsman. This is the minimum for you to follow the future king of pirates. Zoro stares at him blankly for a second, and then gives him a smile that some would consider frightening. Very well said. The dust slowly settled. But to the pirate's surprise, a man in an officer's outfit, and an axe in place of his right hand. He was blonde like Helmeppo, and his jaw was steel with the word Mo below the drawing of a gull. But what caught the attention of the trio was that his axe dripped with blood, and some of his subordinates were lying, dead or injured, all around him. This is Morgan, the captain. Bonnie explains with an angry expression. Why is he attacking his own men? Luffy's question was not missed by the marine captain. Why? Because they are useless scum that can't even deal with some shitty criminals. The three got extremely serious. Even Yusi looks irritated with the Navy captain. Know that these shitty criminals are going to beat you down a lot. Before Morgan can respond, his vision is blocked by black smoke. Without even having a chance to defend himself, he took a punch in the face and went flying. The dark column disappears, and all that's left is a little smoke of that same hue coming out of Luffy's right arm. Are you also a devil fruit user? Also? Then he notices the children crying, and the old people around them. Oh? Was that what you were doing? What a cool skill. Bonnie is happy for the compliment, but tries not to show it. Looks like I'm on a team with two monsters. Can't be left behind. Morgan gets up from the ground, and walks again to the same place he was before. A piece of the upper part of his steel jaw had broken off, and some cracks had appeared. Blood trickled from his nose, and his whole face was red from the force of the attack. He even felt that his neck had almost been broken. And that just pissed him off even more. A giant vein was in his forehead. All the sailors trembled more in fear of him than the pirates. Kill them all now. The sailors had no time to react. As they looked to the side, the demon in the form of a swordsman was among them. With a sword in his mouth horizontally, and with both swords in his hands crossed in front of his chest in an X shape, he spins around himself at high speed. The result is like a cyclone of blades cutting all around. Some received cuts in important veins, dying on the spot, and causing blood to spurt all over, and dirtying the swordsman even more. Only that, all the blood on him, his scary smile, and the gigantic difference in power between them, made everyone fear Zoro even more. Stunned by the ease with which their companions were dying at the hands of that demon, the sailors didn't even notice the pink-haired woman who also came to their side. Bonnie slapped and punched very violently, and everyone who got hit by her either turned into children and started crying, being unable to hold a gun or a sword, or turned into old men too weak to pose any threat. Of course, if someone else was still able to try to shoot her, she didn't hesitate to end their lives with a nice kick to the neck. Yusi jumped on sailors, tearing big chunks out of them with his mouth. They were trying to cut the tiger, but years of fighting the boy in the straw hat gave him an even greater agility than his already natural one. He dodged easily, and still used his claws to cut anyone who tried to hurt him. And Luffy himself didn't stay behind, with his left hand holding the steel pipe, and his right hand covered by his own darkness. He ended up with one sailor after another. The way he used the pipe as a weapon was much better than the way soldiers tried to use their swords. He blocked, bounced, and broke bones purely using physical force. At one point 3 sailors tried to use their swords at the same time to stop him, and he in response, blocked the 3 with the pipe, and gave a punch with his right arm, causing a column of darkness to emerge, killing the 3 instantly. No matter how far the soldiers advanced, the newly formed band of pirates killed them all without difficulty. Every time Zoro, who at this point was the devil's incarnation for them, swung his sword, a life was lost. Bonnie, whom they saw as a terrifying witch, dropped one after the other, changing their ages, and if they tried to resist or keep fighting, died to her. The tiger, who just wasn't any more blood-spattered than Marana, jumped from side to side, always knocking down several sailors, who didn't usually get up. And Luffy, whose powers no one had any idea of, or was strong enough to break their bones with just one hit of his steel barrel. If he used his powers with that column that looked like black flames, it was certain death. All the soldiers have already lost their battle spirit. Even the fear they had of their captain had already been overcome in front of that scene. Morgan watched it all with folded arms. "You are all fucking incompetent." He raises his left arm with the axe, and drops it at high speed on a subordinate in front of him. The sailor is almost split in two, and falls to the ground dead without even understanding why. "I am the great axe hand Morgan. And being my subordinates, but being unable to defeat some chicken pirates is a crime. Line up, your execution is now." Let's see. Just hearing the soldier's voice, the captain made a diagonal cut, and in the next instant his head went flying. "Someone else wants to question me." The soldiers stopped completely. They looked at the ground, and gave up any possible resistance. Their spirits were broken. On one hand, pirates strong enough to kill them, as if they were nothing. On the other, their mad, psychopathic captain. All lined up waiting for death. Luffy, Zoro, and Bonnie were in shock. That son of a bitch. Do this with subordinates themselves. Zoro clenched his sword hilts in rage. They knew it was a hypocritical way of thinking, but still it was one thing for them to kill the enemy. Now their captain started killing them. This was sick. On the other side of the wall, Kobe watched the situation crying. Shit. That's not justice. The field was completely silent. The first soldier appeared in front of Morgan, who was looking at his subordinate with pure contempt, and this one just looked down crying. The Navy captain raised his axe as high as he could. Only before the execution the silence was broken by simple steps. Luffy didn't seem to be in a hurry as he walked towards the sailors. His eyes were covered by the shadow of the straw hat. Morgan looked at him out of the corner of his eye. Wait, you turn purr. The column of darkness hits him, causing him to crash into the base wall. The column retreats, but instead of getting stuck in the broken part of the wall, Morgan seems to be stuck in that column of darkness that was coming out of Luffy's legs. The dark-haired raises and lowers his legs several times, making Morgan go up and down, hitting the ground several times. Then he kicks up, the column disappears, but Morgan continues to rise before gravity kicks in, and he falls several feet to the ground. The noise of the fall is loud enough for everyone on the island to hear, not knowing what's going on, as people retreat into their homes scared. A small crater is formed where it fell. His steel jaw was completely broken, his mouth had a pool of blood formed, his eyes only showed the white part. His axe arm had been broken, and the blade was next to him. His right arm and legs were at unnatural angles. No one could tell if he had died from the fall or if he was dead before that, and none of them cared. He is dead. We're free. Throwing their weapons in the air, all the sailors began to cry with joy. Even though it had been a horrible day, now that Morgan was gone they knew things would get better on the island. Bonnie, Zoro, and Uzi stood side by side with Luffy. They could see the vein in his forehead and hate in his eyes. Both the swordsman and the one came to the conclusion that being part of the same crew as this guy wouldn't be a bad thing, it could actually be a very good thing. They watched the sailors crying, praying, and celebrating. I think we should get out of here while they're so distracted, right? Zoro said to his new crewmates. Bonnie agreed, more than ready to go. Wait a minute, guys. Luffy's expression is replaced by a cheerful one as he runs towards the still passed out Helmeppo. He picks up all the bracelets, necklaces with gold and diamond. Even the gold buttons on his shirt. He returns to his teammates with a big smile. I think this is the most valuable stuff we can get. Let's go. Zoro puts the swords in his haramaki. He and Bonnie put some of the stolen things in their pockets, since Luffy's had no more space. The Marines don't even notice when the four disappear from the field. They jump over the wall and run away. The one with the straw hat looks back and sees his future Marine friend. He waves goodbye with a smile on his face. In response, Kobe wipes the tears away and nods his head up and down as a farewell. The little one with the pink hair was determined. He was going to join the Navy, and he was going to clean up all the mess he could. Few stores were still open after all the noise that had taken place near the base. The few that were still open closed when they saw a swordsman and a tiger all covered in blood. That way we wouldn't be able to buy any supplies. Zoro rides Uzi, and he takes you to our boat, and Bonnie, we're going to buy food and drink for the trip. Alright. The swordsman mounts the tiger, and they set off towards the boat. Luffy and Bonnie stop at a store that finally doesn't close by the time they see them. Uncle, give me all the food and drink I can buy. He throws 1,000 berries on the counter. Even Bonnie is more surprised than the old man who owned the store. They buy everything from the store and come out carrying several bags and barrels of alcohol. Judging that amount of supplies would be enough, Luffy took Bonnie to the harbor where the boats were. Uzi was already on his personal boat taking a nap, and Zoro was on the main fishing boat taking a nap. If anyone else saw that, they would be unable to say that the tiger was the Straw Hat Boy's animal. The two loaded all the supplies into the third boat. Both this and Lucy's boat were tied to the main boat. The two jump into the fishing boat, and Luffy unties the rope to the trunk that held the boat in the harbor. Zoro wakes up with the swing waters, and gets up standing side by side with his new companions, as they watch the island go away. Luffy looks at them with his typical smile from ear to ear. We are now crewmates of the same crew. In response, the two also give a big smile. At the same time at the Navy base. So pack your things, tomorrow your training starts. After Morgan's death, the Marines fastly fixed things, and put a lieutenant in charge. His name was Hardy. Yes, sir. Kobe gives the standard Navy salute, and exits the former captain's room. As soon as he left, more soldiers came in carrying 3 pictures. Here, sir. Minky D. Luffy. He throws the photo showing the boy with the straw hat smiling in the middle of the battlefield, with dark smoke coming out of his right hand, and a steel barrel in his left hand. Urano is Oro. Another photo is placed on the table, this time of the swordsman with the swords attacking the soldiers, and jewelry Bonnie. The last photo is thrown on the table, and shows Bonnie after having punched a soldier. Excellent. We must keep an eye on them. Their strength is something that seems to far surpass the low standard of the East Blue. Unfortunately, they still don't have enough fame for us to put a bounty on their heads, but I intend to insist. The way these pirates seem to be, I doubt it's going to be long before they give us reasons for a bounty on their heads. That's it for now, you're dismissed. Zoro consumed all the food and drink placed in front of him, which is to be expected from someone who has gone 9 whole days without eating or drinking anything. But Luffy and Bonnie ate even more than he did. At that rate they would quickly run out of supplies. This is so good. She speaks with several pieces of meat in her hand, and takes a big swig straight from a bottle of sake. You bet it is. A party right after our first battle with the Navy. He bounced from side to side, as he stuffed meat and sake into his mouth. Both had a reddish tinge to their cheeks. On the other hand, Zoro, who didn't eat as much as they did, but drank at least 3 times as much, was still very sober. But hey Luffy, say it. What's the deal with your fruit? She spoke at the same time, as she turned another bottle. This the yummy yummy no mi, Aloja. Bonnie spits out all the sake she was putting into her mouth. The swordsman can't avoid the thought that this was such a waste of a good drink. Fuck, Aloja. You are probably unbeatable in the whole East Blue. The green-haired raises an eyebrow hearing this. Why? Is this logic really so strong? Bonnie looks at him like he was a madman. Strong? It's said to be the strongest type of devil fruit. Even the most normal Loja would be superior to many devil fruits out there. They are second only to rare and almost mystical fruits. And that is the very incarnation of the forces of nature. The swordsman whistles at this. True, but mine is a little different from a normal Loja. This catches both of their attention. What do you mean? He asks, curious since the Straw Hat was the first Loja user she ever saw. A normal Loja can make a person intangible, right? Bonnie nods her head in agreement, and Zoro opens his mouth in surprise at how broken this seems. It turns out that one of the main properties of my Yami Yami no Mi, the Fruit of Darkness, is absorption. To give an example, he gets his right hand up, and it's covered in darkness. The wind, the sea, everything seems to be heading towards that point. A bone flies off, and is absorbed. This one is practically a black hole. I am able to absorb anything, and that includes damage. Unlike other users, I am not intangible. Bonnie makes a disappointed look, however Luffy never stops smiling. But you won't find another Loja user capable of doing this. Release. The bone that had been absorbed came out of the black hole in Luffy's hand, very different from what it was before. He falls to the floor of the boat. Zoro and Bonnie take a look at it, and are surprised. It's like it was torn apart from the inside out or something. Now they were impressed. Does it work on humans? Bonnie asks, already imagining the amount of damage it would do in someone. She even asks herself if this kind of thing happened to her, would she survive? Absolutely. Luffy answers with a big grin on his face. It must kill right away. The swordsman said, amused by the sheer destructive Luffy demonstrated. Some people die instantly, others are left with only serious injuries. The swordsman, and the shiver at the thought of how destructive these serious injuries could be. Maybe just calling them bad was an understatement. Now I have no doubts. That power definitely makes you one of the strongest people in East Blue. If he hadn't seen Luffy fighting, the green-haired would have disagreed, but knowing of his physical abilities, and now having a sense of his powers, he is unable to disagree with Bonnie. Who knows? Maybe there's still a little thing or two that I can do. The woman's eyes sparkle with anticipation. Like? She asks, putting her face very close to Luffy's. When he notices the small distance between them, the two turn even redder, and Bonnie pulls away a little. Well, you'll find out in time. With that answer, she puffs out her cheeks, and starts moving the dark-haired boy from side to side. Oh, come on Luffy, don't be so boring. Hey Bonnie, I bet if we give him enough drink he'll open his mouth. The two exchange a devilish smile. Luffy laughs even harder at their reaction, and accepts every drink they give him. But halfway through, the three of them forgot why they were doing this, and just started eating, and drinking like a party. Bonnie and Luffy were dancing back and forth eating meat, and Zoro was drinking barrel after barrel. The Straw Hats sometimes argued to know who was the captain or who would be the king of the pirates, but it was more than certain that from now on they were crew. They were just both drunk, talking about small details. At some point they just fell asleep. Yusi had already gone to sleep a long time after eating some meat. He had been with Luffy for so long that all that noise didn't bother him. They wouldn't realize they'd run out of supplies until the next day. The sun's rays were already hitting his eyes, which were still closed, but the boy in the straw hat only adjusted his hat and tried to continue sleeping. He had a horrible headache. It had been a long time since he drank that much. He turned to the other side trying to go back to sleep again. Arg, the one was having the same reaction as her crewmate. A monstrous hangover. Luffy felt someone's breath hitting his face. Very lazily he slowly opened his eyes, and saw Bonnie also lying on her side, with her face in front of him. Feeling watched, she opens her eyes, and finds Luffy's face still sleepy. The two take a while to process how close they are to each other. When they realize their faces turn red. What the fuck are you doing? She tries to get up quickly, but the headache throws off her balance, and causes her to fall again. I was trying to sleep. Very slowly he sits up, and leans against the wall. Why didn't you go to the cabin? There was only one cabin on the whole fishing boat. Last night Luffy assumed that Bonnie would sleep there, and he and Zoro outside. I don't know, I don't remember anything after you showed your powers. I remember meat's sake. He whispers to himself, not actually remembering something. The cabin door opens, and Zoro exits. Unlike the two, he looks great despite having drunk infinitely more. How are you both so bad with so little? He raises his right eyebrow in doubt. Shut up, shut up. Where's the coffee? She answers, and starts looking around, as if she would find some coffee just there. The swordsman snorts. We don't have anything else, all the supplies are gone. The dark-haired and the grunt a little, and then they decide to lie down on the floor. So we're going to need to go to another island. I don't know how to sail, do you? Zoro shakes his head, and Bonnie makes an X with her hands, still grunting. So we're going to have to rely on the good old luck of the sea. His other two crewmates sigh, but no, they can't complain. The hours of the day go by, Luffy and Bonnie's hangovers pass, which makes them realize how hungry they are. Food both say in absolute synchrony. You guys said that at least 20 times. Shut the fuck up. The swordsman screams, already losing his mind. The perspective of spending even more time with them in this tiny boat was throwing him off. The three took the fishing gear that was on the boat and tried to catch something with no luck. We probably need a navigator, it would be much easier to get somewhere that way. The pink-haired says, after sighing. And a cook to have the most delicious things. She says, already imagining a delicious slice of pizza. And a musician. In his mind, Luffy was already imagining everyone singing. This is not important, you idiot. Bonnie slaps the swordsman on the back of the head. How not? Luffy is right, a musician is essential. For sure. Zoro sighs, and decides to not go further on this subject. But then what are we going to do? He asks, turning to both of them. Well, we need to go to the Grand Line, and I have no idea where it is. Luffy answers, still looking for a fish. So the first step is to find a navigator, and know where, and how we get into the Grand Line. Bunny completes, almost catching a fish, but losing it in the last second. She makes a piss face, and Luffy laughs. It looks like a plan, a smile plants on his face, and just in time. Land in sight. When approaching the island they saw that the port had a few boats, and all with the same flag. It was an ordinary pirate's skull, but with a red nose, and 2 vertical eye marks. Is this town already taken? Bunny asks, raising an eyebrow. Maybe. Zoro answers with his hand in the Wado Ichimonji, his sword with a white base. Luffy was jumping with excitement, mainly because he was going to eat at least. Hey. Help. Help. Help us. Help. The three turned to the direction of the requests for help. Yusi also looks up curiously. There were 3 men falling in the sea, beating their arms, trying their best to not sink. They swim towards the fishing boat that just appeared. Please let us up. One of them begs. Zoro, Luffy, and Bonnie face each other, shrug, and decide to save them. Thank you very much now. The one in the middle who appeared to be the leader of these 3 gets up. He looks at Bonnie, and licks his lips, and looks at the other 2 with a cruel smile. His 2 companions stand up with the same expression. We are Captain Buggy's pirates. Luffy kicked him in the middle of his face, sending him back to the sea, this time even farther away. Zoro doesn't even take off the scabbard of his sword, and just uses it to hit the left hand's stomach, sending him as far as Luffy did with the other. Bonnie, very angry at the way they looked at her, slapped the one on the right, turning him into a child, and throwing him in the same direction the others had sent them. So whoever took this island is called Buggy. Sounds stupid, the green-haired says, yawning. We'll find out soon enough. Where's the woman? And that guy? Did you find them? There? She's on the roof. Shoots start to be fired against Nami. Today was not her lucky day. She had even thought it was at first, when she managed to steal a boat with treasures from 3 clowns, but then it went from bad to worse. She knew about Boogie's fame, and knew that he must have a lot of treasures, but to her surprise, not only did he have a lot of treasures, but also a map of the entrance to the Grand Line, which in itself is worth an absurd amount of money. Thinking she hit the jackpot, she managed to steal the map, but when she went to get the gold, a weird guy appeared. He didn't look like he was on the Boogie crew, and told her to hand over the map, which wasn't something she was willing to do. The only problem was his strange power, that he used to almost steal from her. Luckily or unfortunately, depending on the perspective, Boogie's subordinates found them, and it distracted him just enough for her to escape. But it didn't take long before they missed the map, and put 2 and 2 together. Now all kinds of freaks were after her, ready to kill her because of this map. The bullet grazes her shoulder, doesn't quite hit the skin, but rips her shirt. Shit. She jumps from roof to roof, dodging bullets, as best she can. The thief already had some experience with this, but she was also getting tired. Then a bullet grazes her leg, doesn't pierce, but rips through her shin. The red-haired thief loses her balance, trips, and rolls until she falls off the roof straight to the ground. Luckily she doesn't get hurt much, just cuts and bruises. She'd already suffered worse. The real problem was that she was cornered, leaning against the wall. She didn't have any weapons, while the Boogie pirates were all around her, ready to turn her into a sieve if necessary. Where's your partner? He speaks with the gun pointed directly at her head. He's not my partner. The warning shot is fired in the side of her face. Smoke comes out of the hole in the wall, Nami's ear buzzes, and she is a little stunned. Don't try to cover for him. Tell us where he is. She opens her mouth to try to answer something, but can't think of anything. The pirate closes his eyes, adjusts the angle of the gun, so that it hits her in the middle of the forehead, and squeezes the trigger. Shambles. Everyone feels like a thin layer has passed through them, and in the next instant where the thief was is now one of Boogie's subordinates taking the shot. That should have been for the Redeed girl, in the middle of the waist. He felt stunned with pain. Everyone was shocked by the sudden development. They look from side to side, but see no one. Completely terrified, they're on a way leaving their companion to die. A few meters away from there, in the same house they were facing, 2 people watched the pirates leaving. The Redeed had stripes where the bullet had grazed her. Should I thank you? She looks at the person that saved her, the same one that ruined her plans earlier. He was tall and skinny, had a few sideburns and a goatee, a few small bags under his eyes, and some earrings. He wore a white fur hat with spikes on the back. His blouse had long sleeves and was black on the shoulders and arms. From the chest down it was yellow. He wore threadbare jeans with marks similar to the hat and had tattoos on his cuffs. He also had a katana on his back. I just don't like to see people dying for nothing. Now give me the map. Nami takes a step back. You say that, but still he put someone in my place to get shot. Says with an ironic grin in her face. Of course, he was an enemy. The man answered indifferently. And I'm not. She asks, raising her eyebrow. From what I've seen you just steal, and don't really seem to pose any danger. Now give me the map. He speaks, extending his hand to her. Then, she is interrupted by a very loud sound that seems to have come from the near harbor. The man turns his back and looks out the window, seeing debris and people falling to the roofs of the houses that were nearby. What the fuck just happened? He looks back again and realizes that the thief has once again escaped unnoticed. Going back a few moments earlier, Luffy, Bonnie, Zoro, and Yusi finished boarding the island. They caressed the animal's head, which was very happy with it, and for her part, Bonnie was enjoying the animal more and more. It didn't even look like several pirates in weird clown outfits had surrounded the group. They had weapons pointed and swords raised. Who are you? What are you doing here? Luffy puts his hands up with his fists clenched and a smile on his face. I am Minky D. Luffy, the future king of pirates. Do you know where there is a Grand Line map? Luffy's crewmates don't change their expressions, as they aren't surprised by this statement. On the other hand, Boogie's henchman almost jumped in surprise. Pirate King. Map. So you are here for the map. It was all the confirmation they needed. It doesn't look like they're going to want to give it to us. Zoro says in a nonchalantly way. Nothing out of our expectations, Bonnie says, rubbing her stomach. She really wanted a slice of pizza now. The three pirates that just arrived had smiles on their faces, making Boogie's henchmen fear for their lives. They don't even have time to decide the next step. Luffy jumps up and stands side by side with them, getting between two pirates who look like clowns. The boy's shadow seems to take shape and stretches until it's under them all. None of the clowns are pirates. It wasn't quite clear which one they were. Escapes. One moment they pointed their guns at Luffy, the next they were sucked into the black hole. Release. Everyone who was conscious and healthy less than a second ago is thrown out of that mass of darkness, either already dead with blood oozing from their orifices and their internal organs completely destroyed, or the few who survived with sequelae that would likely never be cured. Luffy retracts the column and looks at his friends laughing. See? Really strong, right? I almost feel sorry for them. Zoro says with widened eyes. Then he stops to think for a bit and shrugs. Nah, I'm not. Aloja really is on another level, Bonnie answers, still surprised by how easily the Straw Hat dealt with them. Lucy seemed to agree with Bonnie, the swordsman, and they were amazed at Luffy's abilities. Well, you guys heard them. There's a map around here, let's go get it. He walks away excited. But, Luffy, can you even read a map? The boy stops and looks back with his goofy grin. No, and I bet neither of you do either, right? A large bead of sweat appears on their foreheads as they nod in confirmation. We really need a navigator. The four walk down the street, realizing that there are no longer any residents in the city. The lack of signs of struggle led them to believe that they chose to flee rather than fighting and being killed by the pirates. I think if we want to get anywhere we need to find this Boogie guy. When she finished saying that, her stomach gave a giant growl followed by Luffy's stomach growl. How hungry. Let's get this guy over with and get his food. Zoro was almost startled by how synchronized those two were. The four walked around, as if this were a normal city. On a nearby corner, Nami watched this group with wide eyes. She hadn't seen what happened, but she saw the effects of what was done. Probably what scared her most was the lack of signs of struggle in them. Maybe these people could help her. Hey there. The four look at the girl who was calling them, and see a red-haired girl with short hair wearing a short skirt and white shirt. You guys look strong, right? And must be here to get Boogie's things, right? I can help you with that. She says, pointing to herself with her thumb and a confident expression. I don't even know who you are, and anyway we don't need help. The other two nod in agreement, and the tiger looks pretty disinterested. But the big noise echoes through the street. The Redeed goes frightened, thinking that something had happened, until she realizes that it was the stomachs of the boy with the straw hat and the girl with pink hair. At least I can get you some food. We accept. They say at the same time with no hesitation. Zoro sighs and wonders if she would have some sake too. Yusi remains completely uninterested. This is so good. Once more they speak in perfect synchrony. They're really freaking me out about it. The green-haired man speaks while taking a bottle of alcohol that he had in a cupboard in the house. The tiger ate a piece of meat that Nami had thrown at him. Luffy and Bonnie practically devoured their food in an animalistic way, without pause, gulping one after the other, as quickly as possible, and eating absurd amounts of food. Luffy at least left the plate on the table. Makino taught him good manners, at least some good manners. Bonnie instead was leaning back in her chair, plate in hand, and feet on the table. Nami looked at that group questioning her decision. So this is your house? He asks between chews. No, it's probably from someone who ran away when Boogie arrived. Ah, so we're invading and stealing. Zoro says in an ironic way. Hey, you sold that bottle, and the rest is just food. The thief answers, trying to defend herself. The swordsman shrugs. Whatever. Nami turned over her eyes. This swordsman was annoying. So, are you guys here to steal the Boogie too? Luffy nodded. Yeah, we heard he has a map for the Grand Line, and we want to get it. Nami opens her mouth slightly in surprise. She reaches into her skirt pocket and pulls out a rolled up piece of paper. This map. Bonnie and Luffy stop eating right away. Zoro almost spits out his drink, and even Yusi looks up in surprise. Is this? He speaks, almost climbing the table. The Redeed nodded, and the four of them almost fell to the floor. But wait. This means nothing for us. We can't read maps. All of Luffy's expectation and happiness turns into disappointment, making him lay his head down on the table. You guys don't know how to read maps. Zoro nods his head in confirmation. But it's so easy. The three lock up on hearing this. Wait, you know. The smug smile appears on Nami's face, and she puffs out her chest. Of course, I'm the best navigator in the East Blue, probably even in the Four Seas. Everyone, including Yusi, opens their mouths impressed. Are you a navigator? He asks, almost climbing the table again. So join our crew. He demands with a big smile. Crew? You mean? The boy nodded without losing his happy expression. Yes, a pirate crew. Hearing that word, an expression of contempt comes over her face. Never mind. All three of them raise an eyebrow with the sudden change. What's the problem? Become our crewmate. He repeats with a gigantic smile. Shut the fuck up. Luffy is surprised by the change in attitude. Zoro frowns annoyed, and Bonnie gets up from his chair ready to fight. I hate pirates. They're just monsters. Their voice got a little weaker at the end. Everyone's expressions lighten up a little. They have no idea what happened, but it was clear that pirates were responsible for some atrocity that happened to her. The atmosphere in the room was now heavy. No one else knew what to say. If you hate pirates so much, why don't you take advantage of them? Nami recognized this voice. She looked back with a surprised expression, and there he was. The same person who made her be discovered and saved her later. Luffy, Bonnie, Zoro, and Yusi got up. Zoro draws his swords, Luffy and Bonnie prepare to advance, and Yusi is about to jump into the unknown man. Everyone had been scared that they hadn't noticed him before he spoke. How the fuck did this guy even get in without anyone seeing? This guy is working for that boogie. Zoro asks, just waiting for an opening to attack. Relax, I'm in the same position as you. I want Boogie's map and treasures. Treasures? Luffy looked at his friends, who also seemed surprised. They still have their guard up, but are more willing to hear him. The tattooed one looks a little surprised by his reaction. Of course, Boogie is one of the biggest pirates in the East Blue, and consequently one of the richest, and with more people working for him. Your name is Nami, isn't it? Wouldn't the ideal situation for you be pirates killing each other while you steal the treasure? Nami's eyes widened, not out of fright, but because what the skinny guy was talking about made sense. Despite not being part of or having a crew, I am also a pirate. Why don't we make an alliance? He says, looking at the four pirates. An alliance with someone we don't even know the name of. Sounds like a great idea. Zoro retorts with an ironic smirk in his face. He also takes another swig from the bottle when he's finished speaking. Fair? My name is Trafalgar D. Waterlaw. It raises an eyebrow hearing this. D. How funny, Luffy also has that in his name. Bonnie looks at the boy in the straw hat who doesn't seem to mind the resemblance. For the first time, Law shows a reaction, looking surprised at the straw hat pirate. I see. He looks thoughtful. Everyone except Luffy is curious, but soon Law shakes his head from side to side and decides to focus on what matters now. Anyway, what I propose to you is that we join forces to steal the boogie. And why would I help you? Nami asks skeptically. As I said, while we're busy fighting, you can take the treasure. Of course, if we can get there sooner, the gold is ours. Unless, the Redeed raises an eyebrow in doubt. Unless what? We'll let you keep the treasure, as long as you deliver the map. Wait a minute. And who's going to get this map in the end? Us or you? She is suspicious of the tattooed guy's intentions, but before Law says anything, Luffy gives his solution to the problem. That's simple. Trell, join my crew. You won't regret it because I'm going to be the future pirate king anyway. Once again he is surprised, while Nami slaps herself in the face at this, and wonders if this idiot calls anyone he meets for his crew, while talking a lot of shit. It's true that I don't have any crew very well, depending on how things turn out I'll join you. Luffy gives a big smile, moving in his chair. Cool. But what do you know how to do? I'm a doctor, a surgeon to be more specific. Oh? Luffy and Bonnie are surprised and happy at the same time. Their eyes are sparkling with stars. That's great, we were going to need a doctor sooner or later. She is more willing to let him in the crew. But I haven't. He tries to say, just to get ignored. Welcome to the crew trial. A lot of sweet forms in the head of the surgeon, as he wonders if he won't regret his decision. The six were on their way to the pirate's base, that is where the town's main square was located. We should think of a plan. What are you able to do? Law asks his possible future companions. Nami kept away from them as much as she didn't want to, so she accepted the deal with the surgeon and handed the map to the pink-haired one. Now any treasure she could steal would be hers. Bonnie raises her index finger pointing between her and Luffy. He and I are devil fruit users. She speaks, avoiding giving more information, still not trusting either the tattooed or the Redeed enough to tell them everything. Nami was in shock. Did those legendary fruits of immeasurable value really exist? And two people in front of her have that power. Interesting. Well, I'm one too. My power came from Op no Mi. Basically, I can manipulate things in a certain area up to a certain point. The thief became even more frightened, and even began to reconsider whether she really should do something or not. Bonnie and Zoro realized that Law was trying to demonstrate their cooperation, and they also slowly become more willingly to do so. Luffy also noticed, but he already saw Law as part of the crew, and was thinking about how to convince the Redeed to enter. I use this style. Yes, I heard about an ex-pirate hunter. The green-haired girl gives a convincing smile. It looks like I have a good reputation. At this point Nami didn't even know how to express herself anymore. This was the famous pirate hunter Urano Zoro. And now he was part of a crew with two of the devil fruit users. She wouldn't doubt it if someone said they were the strongest in the East Blue, even though they were still weaker than him. At least in her head. Anyway, be vigilant anyway. Rumors say that Buggy is also a devil fruit user. Law says, getting all of them surprised. Nami was really reconsidering her plans after hearing this. However, she just sighs and decides to still try. She can't go home empty-handed, especially now that she was so close. Luffy for the first time in the entire conversation shows some interest. Hey Trell. If Buggy really is a devil fruit user, leave him to me. He says with a big smile of anticipation. Why? He questions, raising an eyebrow. The Straw Hat Boy just keeps smiling and doesn't respond. Law shrugs and decides to let him do what he wants. They finally reach the square, needing only to go up to face the clown. Luffy jumps, Law and Nami widen their eyes, being taken by surprise with the sudden action. Bonnie and Zoro on the other hand were already expecting this kind of thing from him. Where's Buggy? Dark smoke starts to come out of his right arm, and moving this arm forward, he punches the base with a column of darkness, breaking everything, and sending several people flying. Damn, is this guy an idiot? Law asks still with widened eyes. Nami had already disappeared from their gaze, Zoro and Bonnie were already following their crewmate. Law can only sigh and hope for the best as he climbs into the square. In the clown pirate camp, dust was everywhere. Some were down and passed out while some of the luckier ones had only a few scratches. Cough cough, who the fuck pulled this shit? Says with a vein throbbing in his forehead in irritation. He was a blue-haired man, big and a little muscular, but still thin. He wore makeup on his face with crossbones running through his eyes and forming an X. Above his lashes 2 blue lines going up. He wore a pirate hat with the same symbol as the flags they had in the harbor. He also had red lipstick wrapped around the sides, a colorful coat that looked more fitting for a party. He also wore a white shirt with red stripes, a purple scarf, a dark green scarf covering a lighter green waist in his pants, and gloves covering his hands. This was the famous Captain Buggy. He looked from side to side. He just remembers hearing someone screaming for him, and suddenly a big impact happened. Is it the Navy? The dust descends, and the clown sees 4 people and an animal. And one of them had a straw hat, irritatingly like that of a certain Redeed. Who are you? I'm Minky D. Luffy, the future Pirate King. Law didn't seem to get tired of being surprised by Luffy, at the same time he was starting to respect him a little. The confidence he used to say this to a veteran pirate was admirable. King of Pirates, that was a good one. Hearing this, the dark hair just snorts. The captain of the enemy pirates, however, looks to the side and notices someone interesting. Hey, if it's not Urano Zoro. So the famous pirate hunter is here for my head. Zoro smirks as he hears about his old nickname coming from the clown's mouth. I'm no longer a hunter, I'm a pirate, and we're here as such. He speaks with his Wado Ichimonji already between his teeth and the other 2 swords in hand. The Buggy's subordinates who were not defeated at the time had already risen and were ready for combat. Hey, someone is trying to break into the treasure room. One of the pirates who was sent further away thanks to Luffy's punch ended up seeing Nami. What? Shit, this was a distraction. Buggy exclaims, shifting his attention from the group to the red-haired girl. Everyone runs in the same direction as the thief, who almost went into despair when finding herself surrounded on all sides. However, before the pirates get any closer, a mass of darkness appears on the ground, trapping and pulling them, who in a few seconds are thrown back in a shattered state. Those who survived were showing only the white part of their eyes, and with their mouths wide open trying to pronounce something incomprehensible. This mass disappears from the ground, and Luffy walks until he is between the pirates and the Redeed, with dark smoke coming out of his back showing his enemies who were responsible for the attack. The fight is with me. He wasn't smiling, but he didn't look angry either, his expression was neutral. Only for all 4 who had contact with him before, this showed how serious he was. Onigiri. with both swords in front of his chest forming an X, and sweeping at the clown pirates who were surrounding the raid. At high speed, he swings his swords making the cut, and killing several of the pirate clown's minions in the process. In some it opens the stomach, in others the neck, in any case it gets blood all over again. Bonnie also advances by fooling several of the clowns, making some children and others old. She kills them by breaking their necks or using the barrel of her long boot or using her own fists. DC jumped on enemies, already using his claws to cut the throat of one, and his powerful bite to take the entire piece of abdomen from another. I have no idea what Luffy's fruit is, despite looking extremely powerful. Bonnie's is definitely a paramecia. The tattooed one stared at the dark-haired and thoughtfully. An enemy pirate tries to sneak up behind his back and does a cut with his sword, but when he goes to make the attack, Law just takes a step to the side, avoiding it. He takes his sword from its scabbard and cuts off the enemy's head. With a slight expression of amusement, Law raises his right hand to his chest. The light blue circle forms in the palm of his hand and grows until it forms a sphere covering a few meters around it. His allies eyed the technique with interest. The clown pirates inside the circle looked around curiously. Using his sword, Law makes what looks like a circular cut in the air, and everyone inside the circle has their bodies separated, somehow. In some their legs were separated from their top, in others the cut was on the torso, and there were even some that the cut was in their necks. This was just a head screaming and floating, as he watched his disorienting body pacing back and forth. Captain, help. This one had only been divided in two, the upper and lower parts. That is, his legs were running from one side to the other, while from the waist up, he used his arms to support himself on the floor. What made the experience even more frightening was that in addition to being fully aware, they felt no pain, and were still able to see their internal organs through the holes where they had been separated. Even some organs were split, but still pulsing, and alive, with a red that made everything look normal. Several clowns started vomiting. Nami, even knowing that this probably wouldn't happen to her, almost vomited too. Seemingly amused by the situation, Law began to move his hands in circles, and all victims of his powers began to move, floating circularly around the surgeon, so he turned his hand palm up with his index and fingers, half pointing up, and the others closed in hand. Random parts of the enemy's bodies joined together. The leg of one, for example, joins the arms of another, and even the head of a third. This kind of bizarre combination happens all over the sphere, while the clowns run around looking for their body parts. At this point outside the sphere no one else is fighting, they're just watching Law's abilities in awe. Still looking amused by the situation, Law undoes the room. Instantly several of the people who have suffered the effects of his powers fall to the ground screaming in pain. Blood begins to ooze from unnatural joints, like an arm in place of a hip. One after the other they begin to fall in hellish pain, and feeling more scared than they would ever have been in their lives if they had never met the surgeon. Fortunately for them this suffering was short-lived, and within moments they were dead. Silence took over the square. Boogie lost any confidence in a match against these four. The famous pirate hunter, and 3 devil fruit users. He wasn't suicidal. But he also doesn't usually run away empty-handed. Hey. Wait a second. That's not fair. Fair? There are many of you, and few of us. Does that seem fair to you? Zoro says with a sarcastic smirk. He was all covered in blood, putting even more fear in the hearts of the surviving pirates. Buggy is cornered in a cold sweat. He had to choose his next words well. What I mean is I'm challenging you to a duel or Rano Zoro. He speaks with false confidence while pointing to the green-haired swordsman. Zoro, in turn, laughs a little, and moves forward, showing that he has accepted the challenge. TSK, that's boring, I wanted to fight him. Luffy complains pouting. Something's wrong, Law thinks to himself, but not noticing what exactly. Without anyone noticing, Buggy made a small signal to his subordinates. The swordsman and the clown are a few meters away from each other. Luffy and Law approach. Luffy to see the fight better, and Law because he was suspicious. I heard you have a devil fruit ability, so you better not disappoint me. He speaks with a psychotic look that almost made the red-nosed one cry. Calm down, Buggy, calm down. Imagine the fame you'll get if you kill him. The goofy smile appears on the clown's face. Zoro steps forward, and with just one cut splits Buggy in half. At least that's how it looks to the other 5. Yusi grunts, as he stares at what they assume is the corpse, showing extreme discomfort. Luffy and Bonnie seem disappointed with the clown's performance. The boy starts walking the other way to finish off Boogie's henchman, who seems strangely calm. Nami is relieved that it's all over, but Law feels even more that something is not fitting. That's it. Disappointing. He says, putting his swords in their scabbards. Urano dodge. Still with his back to Boogie's corpse, the swordsman doesn't understand their concerns. Everything happened in less than 5 seconds. Boogie's hand flew with the knife straight to Zoro's abdomen. Nami and Bonnie widen their eyes. Law himself is taken by surprise, and is slow to react. Luffy doesn't hesitate, and runs off to stop the attack. The swordsman wouldn't be able to dodge, and Luffy was caught off guard, not having enough concentration to use his powers. If he was prepared he might be able to create a small black hole to draw the hand to it. Only the speed with which things happened, and the surprise factor negated that option. He wasn't going to be able to touch the hand to stop it, so there was only one way to help his crewmate. Zoro looks back expecting an attack, but when he sees what happened, his pupils are the size of needles. In front of him, Luffy, he's only known for a short time despite being crewmates, the silly straw hat boy, had his hand pierced by a knife that should have hit him. Luffy? Bonnie screams with whitened eyes. This guy's sweat runs through Law's forehead, as he is completely taken by surprise by Luffy's action. Nami covered her mouth with her hand while the shock was clear in her eyes. A pirate sacrificing himself for his comrades. It went against everything she had ever seen before. DC looked desperate, wanting to run to his owner's side. At the same time, he knew that was not what the pirate would want. Luffy, regret took the swordsman. Of course he knew Luffy for a little amount of time, but even so, not only were they companions, he was willing to take a blow like that, so he wouldn't get hurt. He clenched his sword hilts in frustration. He was weak, very weak. From that moment on, he decided two things. Luffy is the person he must follow to the end, and he would never again be so weak as to need him, his captain, to sacrifice himself for him. The blade came out of the back of his hand, and blood was running down his arm. Luffy just gritted his teeth and closed his fingers around the clown's hand. At the same time, Buggy was attracted to that part of his body magnetically. He was flying, his hand joined the fist, and for the first time since he ate that fruit, he couldn't separate himself. Zoro, Bonnie. Hearing her name, she got out of shock and faced her friend, her crewmate, with great concern. Zoro looked at him with regret. He was still blaming himself. But what nobody expected was that the boy looked at them smiling. This only left the five even more surprised than they already were. One of the properties I didn't tell you about is that Buggy was squirming trying to get out of the boy's hands. But not only did his powers not work, he also didn't seem to be strong enough to compete with what was just a stupid child for him. It's that when I touch a devil fruit user, they can lose their powers. They take a while to process this information. At first they don't understand what their friend told them, but when their minds finally interpret what they were told, the shock almost makes their brains stop again. The clown was even close to crying when he heard this. The straw hat boy then proceeds to look at the enemy in his hands, in contrast to the smiling face he showed the others. This time he was serious with a cold look on the clown. He pulls the steel pipe from his back with his other hand, and with great force and speed hits the clown on the head. The bar no mi user thinks that his skull is going to break, and is overcome with fear. Shoot. His subordinates are taken by surprise, and are at a loss for what to do. But Captain, Luffy hits the enemy even harder. Blood starts flowing from his head. He breaks something in his head. Shoot. They hear the roar of fire igniting, and a cannon aimed at them. Even Luffy stops his attacks. The cannon fuse is about to run out, so Law takes the initiative. Shambles. The light blue sphere shrouds all allies, and teleports them out of the square. Buggy is released thanks to this, and disbands in time to escape the shot. A loud bang is heard even from outside the city, scaring the residents who were far away. In front of the square where there were several houses, there was now just a trail of destruction. What do you think you're doing? They must be close shoot to every side. Meanwhile the six ran away from the square. Luffy was running ahead until he tripped and fell. Luffy? She was still shocked at the direction things had taken. It was a lot to process in a short time. You don't need to worry, Bonnie, Imo. His speech is interrupted when he feels a bite on his shin. Looking down, he sees a small white dog biting him furiously. Bonnie glares at the dog with hate, and Yusi prepares to advance on the canine that is 1/10 his size. You stupid dog. Don't you dare. She lifts her leg ready to kick the dog. Stop. You won't hurt him. An old man with armor on his chest, shoulders, and legs, and with a spear on his back appeared. Despite his outfit, he didn't resemble a warrior at all. Bonnie ignored him, and was about to kick the dog that Yusi would love to rip apart later. Chow Chow, come here. Before the pink-haired pirate's blow was given, the puppy responded to the call by releasing Luffy's leg, which was punctured and bleeding, despite the fact that he didn't seem to care, and went to the old man. The man then starts stroking the dog's head with a sad look. Law puts his arm in front of her, preventing her from advancing towards those two. It doesn't matter now. Hey old man, do you have any medical supplies there? Hearing this, everyone realizes that it needs to be dealt with soon. Bonnie and Zoro look at the ground in frustration, and Yusi lowers his head whimpering. The old man stares at the group he thinks is at least strange. He nods his head. There must be some in this store. He points to the building behind them. It had a large pet shop sign, and unlike the other houses, it still seemed to be cleaned regularly. Why do you need it? I think it's for this. Luffy raises his stabbed hand. Some of the blood had already dried around his wrists, but it still came out a lot, and his own hand was very pale. Even so, Luffy only pointed to the wound with a neutral expression. Nami felt a shiver seeing that cut, and took a deep breath, afraid and difficult to say what it feels like seeing a pirate she hates so much hurting himself like that to save a crewmate. She would be even more stunned if she knew how little they had known each other. The old man in the armor took a few steps back, frightened until he recovered from the shock. I have some stuff in the store. We need to deal with this soon. The surgeon nods, and everyone enters the shop. Boss, the cannon is ready. Do we shoot? He answers. There were some bands wrapped around the top of his head. Wait. Not yet. If we destroy those idiots, the map goes with it. Do you know how much that map values? Besides, if I get Urano's head, it would do a lot for my reputation. He looks like an idiot, as he thinks of a future that will never materialize. So we should go after them, Captain. A skinny man on top of a pale lion with a grey mane asked. He wore blue pants, a yellow scarf around his waist. On his upper body only his chest was covered by what looked like a coat, but it was his body hair. His hair was white, and joined with a beard, but made him look like he wore a weird hat, as his face itself had no hair at all. It didn't help that the top of his head had something that resembled ears. Beside him was a man riding a unicycle. He was tall, and thin with some muscle. He wasn't wearing a shirt, but he wore a purple coat that reached his legs, and had no sleeves. Around his neck he had a scarf with blue and white squares that went down to his leg like his coat. He wore white pants, and a sky blue scarf on his stomach. One of his eyes was covered by his green hair. Oh, Moji, Kabaji, great. Our search for the thief was useless since she returned. Okay, get some men, and go after the kids who attacked our base. Avoid fighting directly, they have 3 devil fruit users. Just retrieve the map and, if possible, bring Urano here. If not possible, a creepy smile forms in his face. Just come back, and we'll destroy this city. The two nod their heads. The lion licks the ground where some of Luffy's blood is fallen, and they start following the animal's nose. Did you guys try to face Buddy? The old man asked in disbelief. They were in the store's attic where they had both medical supplies, food, and water. Plus a mattress on the floor, giving a sense that the man in the armor had been there for some time. Sure, he looked pretty weak, but we got careless. The old man looks at the boy's hand being bandaged. Law used his powers, and the first aid equipment he had, reconnecting the veins and nerves with the room, abusing a bit of his powers in the treatment. The dark-haired was just having a bit of trouble closing his hand, but the doctor said he would get better soon. However, a scar would always be there, both on the palm and on the back of the hand. Luffy didn't seem to mind, however the swordsman couldn't stop blaming himself. His leg was also already bandaged in the part where the dog had bitten him. They had already disinfected it, and would be fine soon. The pirate's pet stood beside him, and licked his other hand a little. Luffy smiled at him, and patted his head. Bunny looked down, as much as the other two. Law was incredulous at the same time that he started to respect the Straw Hat Pirate a lot more. Being part of his crew seemed reasonable now. Nami was still trying to process the contrast between them, and normal pirates she had already seen. But tell me, Asen, why are you here when everyone else is gone? This was something everyone was curious about, and brought them out of their downcast and pensive states. In answer to the question he sighed, and began to remember the past. This pet shop belonged to an old friend of mine. He was the owner of Chow Chow, the dog outside. Having a pet shop was something he always wanted to do, and when he did it was the happiest day of his life. He and Chow Chow loved this place very much, always taking care of it with great affection. But one day my friend found out he had cancer, and it was already at a very high stage. He promised Chow Chow that he would come back when he was hospitalized, only to die a few days later. Ani and Yusi were shaken hearing the story of the little animal that they almost killed. They felt remorse in their chests, as both looked down in shame. Chow Chow made a promise that he would continue to take care of this place, and he has been doing that ever since. The townspeople think he's waiting for the owner to come back, but I know he knows, and yet he's trying to keep his promise. This place is a treasure for him. Treasure. One of his hands unconsciously goes to the straw hat on his head with the memories of Shanks, while the other touches the steel pipe in his back, reminding him of his brothers, of them hunting, running, and fighting using those pipes as weapons. These memories bring him happiness. The old man looks around the store's attic with mementos of his friend. And are you here taking care of him? The question, once again looking down, feeling guilty. Yusi covered his face with his paws in shame. Of course, I can't let the pirates hurt him. The lull of the moment is broken when they hear a loud crashing noise below them. The eldest screams for the dog, and desperately descends the stairs followed by the pirates and the thief. The store that a few moments ago was clean and well taken care of, was now broken, and with products everywhere. The little dog was leaning against a wall, injured, trying in vain to get up. Shitty dog. The lion tamer talked while his animal ate the store's rations. Chow Chow. When descending the stairs, and facing this scene, the old man loses his mind, and tries to attack the lion. He pulls the spear from his back, and runs forward. Moji and Kabaji smile imagining the man's head flying. The lion, Richie, raises his paw, and quickly lowers it on the old man. If he was hit, at least he would break a lot of bones, and if he was lucky he would be killed. None of these scenarios came to fruition however, all thanks to a boy with a straw hat who, faster than any, pulled a steel pipe using his good hand, and slapped the pale lion in the face, making him and his tamer fly outside the store. The old man, Nami, and Kabaji are incredulous with the boy's physical strength. Hey Luffy. Don't exaggerate, you're still hurt. The tattooed one speaks with real concern. His medical side appeared too much. Oh, my bad. He speaks looking at the doctor while scratching his head. The Redeed looks around getting more and more irritated, especially seeing the state of poor Chow Chow. This is what pirates are, she whispers, biting her lower lips. TSK, leave that for another time, he says, while looking at newcomers' enemies. Nami gets even more irritated, and tries to respond to Bonnie, until she sees the tamer getting up in the street. Oh you, Moji struggles up from the ground. He landed on an arm, nearly breaking him. Richie stood up too, only in fear instead of anger. Look on the bright side, Moji. Our targets are all here. He speaks with a psychotic smile. However, they can only see half of his face, as the other half is covered with green hair. Hadn't the captain told us to not face them directly? It's simple, we keep them busy, kill whoever has the map. He stares at Nami, who walks back scared. Well, they're busy, right men? Yes. There were about 30 armed pirates across the street ready to fire. Looks like these guys don't learn. Luffy was about to step forward to start the fight when Bonnie grabbed him by the arm. Wait, Luffy. This time you won't have to fight. With the request made by Bonnie, Luffy looks at her in confusion. Please, Captain. He opened his eyes a little. Seeing how determined she was, he just sighed and walked back. She and Yusi walked side by side. Zoro followed them with his swords already sheathed and a smile on his face. He was going to take away all the frustration growing inside him now. Law was not far behind either. The four left the store facing more than 30 enemies. Their captain sat cross-legged and watched it all intently. The old man was stunned by everything happening, and Nami had more and more complicated feelings about these pirates she had met. As far as she knew, they could have left the whole fight to the Straw Hat. She saw that with his powers he would take it for granted. At the same time, she saw how they were in regards to the wound he had, and knew that they wanted to fight because of that. Even Law, who wasn't even officially part of the crew, was still going ahead. She still hadn't realized that she increasingly considered them amazing people. Luffy noticed too, that's why he heard Bonnie's request so quickly. Now he was officially the captain, and had to pay attention to his crew members. It was one of the things he learned from Shanks, one of the most important things. Bonnie and Lucy came face to face with Moji and Richie. In addition to wanting to fight alone this time, they also wanted to hit the people who destroyed Chow Chow's treasure a lot. They thought they owed it to the puppy. Ha! What are a little girl and a kitten going to do to us? He says this looking at Bonnie's body, imagining her being devoured by his lion, maybe after he had fun with her. Obviously the look in his eyes pissed her off more than she'd been all day. You see, I end up with one shitty animal, and you end up with the other. The tiger nods his head in understanding. The tamer, on the other hand, frowns angrily. Men finish her. The subordinates pointed their guns to the woman and the tiger, both remaining immobile. Nami almost yells for them to get out of there. Of course that wouldn't be necessary, because before they had a chance to shoot, 15 were on the ground with gigantic cuts on various parts of their bodies, and the other 15 had their bodies dismembered and were still alive. The old man and the other two buggy subordinates were stunned by the group's performance, while they themselves didn't think it was too much. Luffy smiled, almost bouncing, seeing his crew shine. Zoro yawned in boredom, as they once again tried to stab him in the back. Unlike before, however, he turned quickly, and redirected the dagger he had stuck in a wall. Very good, Rarama. The acrobat speaks by juggling his daggers. Zoro looks at him blankly. Did you learn how to be a coward with that asshole of your captain? Maybe. He answers with a macabre smile. Back to Bonnie and Yusi. Moji looked a lot less confident now that all the underlings had either been killed or torn apart, who would also die soon too, not that he knew. And that didn't escape Bonnie's eyes. The crew looks as shitty as that son of a bitch clown. The tamer grits his teeth. Shut up. I wouldn't lose to a woman. Bonnie mouths turn into an O in amusement. I wouldn't lose to a guy in such a ridiculous outfit. He clenches his fists and looks at the enemy pirate furious. Listen here, bitch, this is my masculine hair. He proudly declares. In response, everyone but Kabaji makes a disgusted face. Oh goddammit. Zoro wants to change. No fucking way. You, how disgusting. It was a little ironic coming from him, considering how long he hadn't showered, and all the dried blood on his body. There was already a stain on his white shirt. A vein in the clown pirate tamer's forehead appears, looking like it's going to explode. Listen here, you bunch of so, wanting to get this over with as soon as possible, and not wanting to touch him more than necessary. Bonnie punches him in the middle of the face, both breaking his nose and turning him into a kid. From his point of view, everything went dark for a second. He felt his body lighter, and being thrown farther than he thought he should. Hitting the wall with everything, Moji spits out some blood and hits the ground face down. Standing up with difficulty, he notices that his hands look smaller. He puts his hand to his face and notices blood coming out of his nose, which makes him look down to see his hands and see how close he is to the ground, at the same time noticing how his body looks a lot smaller. Moji. This is the one that changes the age of others. First, the tamer doesn't understand why his crewmate was repeating what their captain had said until he put 2 and 2 together and realized his situation. He had been reduced to a third of his size, his pants didn't fit him, his face was rounder, and all the body hair was gone. He felt a breeze all over his body. Moji looks scared to the, who has a huge smile on her face, and with her arms crossed below her breasts. Feeling pure terror, the white-haired one tries to run away, which results in a kick in the face given by Bonnie. That was for the store. She kicks again. Her high boots make the kicks hurt even more. This one for Chow Chow. Richie tries to attack her, but Yusi jumps on him and makes a nice rip in the lion's side with his claws. And that's for what your captain did to mine. With her face twisted with hatred, Bonnie kicks him in the neck using the barrel of her boot, making a hole that kills him instantly. The old man was a little startled by how coldly she seemed to have killed that child, even though he knew it wasn't a child. The feeling of revenge, however, made him grateful for her. "See Chow Chow, my friend avenged you," Luffy says to the dog with a big and proud smile on his face. The puppy looked a little better. Richie begins to cry the death of his owner, and in his hatred, he tries to jump into Bonnie, being stopped by the tiger that uses its paws to break the lion's right front paw. Having lost mobility, he was an easy prey for the tiger who had gotten used to living with Luffy. With his mouth alone he rips a good part of the animal's back that cries, feeling even more pain. But Yusi is so furious for what they did to both his owner and friend, and also to the puppy. With his paws he rips all over the lion's back, and just like his owner did, he tried to run away, and just like Bonnie did, Yusi stopped him. The tiger bit into Richie's tail, almost tearing it off, then he pulled him back, making him fall to the ground at his mercy. Seeing how much the lion has already suffered, the other feline decides he has no point in continuing this anymore, and uses his claws to slit his throat. Kabaji was pale, realizing how much they had underestimated their enemies. Probably just because of meeting them today, their strength had already been reduced by more than half. The acrobat turns and tries to run away, but Zoro cuts his unicycle in half, causing him to hit the ground face down. Thinking about running away, he speaks with his sword pointed at the emo acrobat. "Damn Murano, don't underestimate me." He pulls out his daggers. "I'm not underestimating you, I know exactly how weak you are." Gritting his teeth, and with visible veins of hatred on his forehead, he runs to face the green-haired. Zoro in response placed the two swords in parallel, and with their blades behind the white-handled sword in his mouth, he advanced forward faster than the acrobat. Torigari. He pulls both swords forward, making two vertical cuts. The two pass by each other. At first it seems like nothing happened, but in the next moment two cuts open on Kabaji's shoulders going to his waist. An immeasurable amount of blood came out of him, causing him to drop dead. The last thing he thought he saw was a tiger above Urano. That's what happens to anyone who gets into her way. Luffy was smiling, so happy with the result, even if it was no surprise to him. Nami was shocked at how strong this group was. She didn't know that they were this brutal. The old man, however, looked thrilled. He was shaking all over with his eyes watering. "That's it. I can't take it anymore." Everyone looks at him confused. "I'm the mayor of this town. 40 years ago this was nothing, we built everything ourselves. And these clowns now want to take that away from us. I hid like a rat for far too long, while you who have nothing to do with it are taking them out one after the other. But I who love this town so much ain't doing a damn thing." By this point the mayor was crying. The pirates looked at him blankly while Nami almost cried with him. Unfortunately the moment is interrupted by a huge explosion. Another part of the city had been destroyed by the boogie bomb. "Enough. I won't allow this anymore." He gets up to run, but a strong hand lands on his shoulder, keeping him in place. He looks up and sees the boy in the straw hat. "Boy, don't stop me. This is my fight, I will protect my treasure." The old man can't see Luffy's gaze, which is covered by a shadow from his hat. "Sorry Asen, but you're wrong. This is a fight between pirates." After saying this, he hits the mayor's head in the back, knocking him out. "What are you doing?" Nami screams with her eyes whitened. Luffy looks at her, as if nothing has happened. "Sorry, I'm not in the mood to let him die." But forget it, he was just going to get in the way. "Of course, we pretend to do a favor in exchange for that, right, Captain?" Bonnie says with a convinced smile. Luffy also smiles, and leaves the store. "This time the nose guy is mine." They nod their heads. The dark-haired goes to where Kabaji's dagger had been stuck in the wall. He takes it out, and puts it on his waist, then he turns to Radid. "Nami, if you want to take their treasures, this is going to be the best chance." He says nothing more, and with his crew they head towards the clown base. The thief takes a while to decide, but in the end she goes after them. At the center is a boy in a straw hat, on his right a girl with short clothes and pink hair, beside her a blood-stained tiger, with the blood still dripping from his mouth. On the left a swordsman bathed in enemy blood, and with 3 swords at his waist, and finally beside him a thin man with tattoos down his arm, a long sword at his waist, and a look that knows no hesitation. This was the group that in a few hours would shock the East Blue. Once again that day they are facing each other at the entrance to the boogie base. The difference is that now they have a cannon pointed at them. On top of the barrel of the cannon the clown captain looks at them fearlessly. "So you guys really approached, huh? I can even admit that you guys are good at fighting, but there are things that just go beyond human limits. Feel the boogie bowl." To some of Boogie's annoyance, only Nami, who is a little behind the main group, seems to get scared when the cannon is aimed at them. "Back off," he whispers, and only his crewmates hear, making them jump a few meters away from him, getting closer to the thief. "What was it? Your little friends abandoned you?" "Shoot." Luffy ignores the useless teasing, and just raises his left hand. Below him a black hole in the shape of a circle with a short diameter forms, and in his own hand, one also forms. The bullet is fired, but to the surprise of the blue-haired clown it deviates a little off course, and goes straight into the mass of darkness in the boy's hand. Buggy at first doesn't react until his mind processes what just happened, and he's staring at Luffy with his mouth open, eyes wide, and phlegm coming out of his nose in pure fear. Looking directly into the clown's eyes, Luffy gives a sneer, and jumps to the same height as him. The black hole that was on the ground disappears, while the one that was in Luffy's hand continues. Release. The cannonball went flying back, as fast as it was sent. The makeup pirate's eyes almost popped out of fright. Only using his powers he managed to go sideways, separating the rest of his body from his feet, and flying to the side. The rest of the crew aren't that lucky. The buggy ball destroys the entire square with the bases and subordinates. Some are reduced to almost nothing with only their bones shattered, and their blood left. Others only parts of the body remain, such as arms or a leg, a trunk, or even a head almost shattered. There were practically no survivors, or they were reduced to nothing or only body parts were left. Buggy looked at it with a despair that took root in the depths of his soul. Not because his men had died, but because in a few hours the forces of his crew that was considered one of the strongest in the East Blue had been reduced to nothing. To say he was having a panic attack would be an understatement. He was almost going insane. It's over, Buggy, you lost. Luffy was now in the rest of what was left of the square facing the clown that was in the air. This one was looking at the boy, more specifically his straw hat, going crazy. Damn, why is it always one of you? He talks, as he rubs his hand over his face, ruining the makeup, and making him look even more insane. Why is it always a straw hat son of a bitch who takes everything from me when I am so close? You're like that asshole of that Redeed. This catches Luffy's interest. Redeed with a straw hat, are you talking about Shanks? Hearing that name, first Buggy stops until he clenches his teeth and fists with the veins in his head, looking like they're going to explode. You know him, of course you know him. Then a look of understanding passes over Buggy before he reverts to his smoldering hatred. Don't tell me that hat. Huh? It's his, so what? How the fuck does someone like you know him? The clown loses any sign of sanity he might have had. How? We were of the same crew. And one day after a battle against an enemy crew I found a fucking treasure map that would make me rich. As if it was not enough, we also found a fucking devil fruit. I thought someone would have to be stupid to want to lose the ability to swim and never find treasures in the deep of the sea, but do you even know the price of one? I would be rich for the rest of my life. I had even fooled everyone into thinking that I ate a false devil fruit. I would get rich with that map and the fruit. But then that shitty Redeed greeted me. I hid the fruit in my mouth, only that when he gave me another scare I ate it and still dropped the map. And I still fell into the sea. If that shitty had not taken me from there I would have died. Hearing this, everyone looked at him like they were looking at an idiot, and in fact, they were looking at an idiot. So not only were you dumb enough to hide a fruit in your mouth, Shanks also saved your life, and you still complain. You really are a son of a bitch. Someone like you would never understand. He dives towards Luffy. Bunny makes a move in their direction, but Zoro puts his arm in front of her. They exchange looks, she nods, and takes a step back. Everyone, including Nami, begins to watch the fight. You should have understood by now that you don't have a chance against me. He bends down, dodging the attack, and punches the clown in the stomach. His feet that were apart come back to his body at the same moment. The punch takes all the air out of the clown, and knocks him to the ground, but, as he falls he pulls 3 knives from his back, and tries to cut Luffy in the head, or at least that's what the straw hat thought. He ducks his head to dodge, but when he hears the sound of something tearing his expression changes. He puts his foot on Buggy's chest with pressure, and grabs his hat on his head, and takes a good look. 3 vertical cuts that go from the base to the middle of the hat could be seen, and although it could still be sewn, that wasn't what mattered to Luffy right now. You see, Whimper's seeing what happened. Bunny gets even more worried, and even Zoro can't keep himself expressionless. Luffy slowly puts the hat on his head. He kicks the clown in the side, making him roll a little to the side. Buggy gets pissed off. Luffy only raises his left hand, the one that wasn't stabbed, and the clown is pulled by a gravitational pull towards the hand, being held by the neck. With the other hand that can now close it completely, Luffy takes the steel pipe. With force and speed, he hits the side of the head of the former enemy captain, who in response only grunts in pain. That was for the town. He raises the pipe above his head, and goes down, hitting the same spot he had hit before in the other fight, and this time with more force. The wounds that had been bandaged open again, and if someone took an X-ray they would see a crack in the clown's skull. That was for the mayor. Below them a small black hole is formed. Luffy releases Buggy, which is pulled inside it. The dark hair counts for a few seconds before releasing the enemy, and undoing the black hole afterwards. He once again catches him by the neck. Blood runs from his nostrils, eyes, and ears. The fingers of his hands are bent in unnatural directions, and it was even possible to see the bones sticking out of the skin. Abrasions and bruises were all over the body. His head was tilted back while it could only be seen the whites of his eyes. Please stop. Luffy remains expressionless. That was for my hat. And this. He tucks the pipe into his back, and takes the dagger from his waistband. It's for Zoro. Luffy stabs the clown in the same position that Buggy planned to stab the swordsman. He doesn't even have the strength to say anything. Luffy pulls the dagger back and throws it to the ground. Now die. He throws it in the air, makes a pose to punch with his left arm a little behind with dark smoke coming out of him. Then with the clown falling he takes his arm forward, and a column of black smoke hits him, sending him a lot farther. The six see his silhouette moving away on the horizon. Luffy once again takes the hat off his head and looks at it. This time the regretful look is obvious. Bonnie and the others arrive at his side and look at his sad face. Hey, she speaks, putting her hand on his shoulder. You were amazing, Captain. A small smile appears on his face. The weight of what Pink had said was something he was fully aware of. Nami watches the group moment with discomfort, feeling out of place. She shakes her head from side to side and tries to focus. Walking towards the treasure store, which was relieved to see it was intact after Luffy's attack, she takes everything Buggy had gathered so far. 10.00 berries came that way. The genuine smile that hadn't appeared on her face in a long time could be seen now. Now it was almost ending. She faces the victorious pirates with a series of mixed feelings. Hey, say after getting close to them, if you want I'll sew this for you. This obviously referred to the straw hat. Luffy's face lit up with such genuine happiness that it almost moved the girl. Really? Thank you so much. She takes one of the bags of gold that contains half of the stolen wealth and hands it to him. What is this? The others also don't understand. What is this? This is gold, and it's too heavy, so carry it for me. She speaks, throwing the bag at him. Okay. She walks past them all, and then looks back and sees their faces without understanding anything. What are you doing? Let's go. Shall we? The doubt on his face turns to happiness. So you agreed to join my crew. The thief is slightly irritated to hear this. Listen here, I'll never be a pirate, that said. I don't see any harm in allying with you guys a little longer. Bonnie clicks her tongue stressed with Nami. Yusi does the same, and Zoro doesn't seem to care. Luffy is just smiling. Got it. And you Trell. The surgeon is taken back by the new nickname. For a second it's like he's thinking about several things. If you let me, I want to join your crew. Luffy jumps with happiness and puts his arm around the neck of the tattooed man, who looks a bit annoyed by it, but decides to put up with it. That's it, guys. We have more members now. Let's go to the Grand Line. Do we even have a boat for that? Zoro asks with a raised eyebrow. We can think about the details later. Bonnie speaks with the same happiness as her captain. They head towards the harbor where the boats are. Halfway there, Luffy seems to remember something. You can go ahead, I have a little thing to do. Before hearing their responses, he was already gone. Not far from there, the boy in the straw hat ran until he reached a familiar place. The old man was still unconscious. Chow Chow was beside him licking the mare's hair. Luffy with a sweet smile puts in some kibble from a package that was lying on the ground for the dog. Well, he leaves the bag of gold on the ground. Consider it my apologies for hitting you, awesome. Luffy looks around the street, not paying attention to the bodies of the enemies, but to the houses and buildings around them. And also take good care of your treasure, you too. He looks the puppy in the eye as he says this. Hey, I know. Where's that idiot? Nami says, already impatient to go. Hey. Look how you talk about our captain. They had gained real respect for Luffy now, she and the swordsman, but this one was already dozing off, and probably wouldn't mind someone just calling him an idiot. Bonnie on the other hand had seen many types of people, the worst several times, but never someone like Luffy. She was sure she wouldn't regret choosing him as her captain. So she wouldn't accept a thief who wasn't part of the crew, and who didn't even seem able to recognize his value to insult him. I talk about what I want about an idiot like him. She answers by showing her tongue to Bonnie. Oh, you, they're forehead to forehead pushing each other almost out of balance. Hi. Let's go. Soon Luffy appeared jumping straight to the fishing boat where Zoro and Law were. His landing almost made the boat turn, almost knocked Law down, and made Zoro wake up with a start. The fuck was that? Law holds onto the side of the boat tightly, as he snorts irritably. My bad. The girls were in a fourth smaller fishing boat that was the buggy's before. It was tied to the other's fishing boat, and the boat with the resources was tied to this one now. They untied the boat from the mast that held them, and continued their journey. They had already taken a considerable distance for the island to be almost disappearing from the horizon when Nami missed something. Wait a minute, she looks at Luffy. Where's the treasure I gave you? Ah, I left it with the old man. He'll need to take care of his town. He speaks lying on the side of the boat with a calm look. It was my treasure. She speaks standing up, gesturing furiously. Oh, stop crying. Bonnie says, dismissing her. Nami sits down, sighs, and hugs her knee, hiding her face. Bonnie looks at her with contempt. What she didn't know is that the Redid had a smile on her face. Maybe she had admired the Straw Hat's attitude maybe. Thanks for watching my video, and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic. Link is in the description. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.